LoveLore Library. Chapter 293. The main god entered reincarnation. The star path returned to its original position. The destroyed plane condensed mottled light and slowly recovered under the witness of the stars. The specific time was reset for 100 years while the majestic divine power was shuttling. The unresolvable resentment rushed to the place where the obsession was the deepest, and was fixed at the original point in the endless rotation of the life chart. Light and shadow intertwined, it was magnificent. Yijiosa quietly watched. The budding worlds, life after life was restored, year after year, the cycle of time continued. Planes were linked to each other, and worlds overlapped with each other. All the starlight was lit up, and countless trajectories evolved into a new origin. The feeling of being in control of everything was not as happy and comfortable as he had imagined. It was more the responsibility and burden of being in a high position, as well as the loneliness and solitude of being surrounded by stars. Yijiosa was just a human, and he had always been willing to be a human. He had seen the best and most beautiful human nature, and also the ugliest and most evil. He had crawled in the abyss and had seen the scenery from the peak. 10,000 years in a glance, reincarnation with a thought. The most precious thing was not what he had obtained, but what he had at the end. He had a second life. Although his life was chaotic, he had gained a lover, family, and companions. He truly stood at the peak of the great world, and even if he turned his hands over, he still kept his original heart and bottom line. He had no regrets in this life, nothing more than this. Until today, there was only gratitude left in his heart. He had no regrets in life. He was grateful to the people and things he had met, allowing him to walk step by step to where he was today. And now, he wanted to return to his companions, to share his insights and the joy of his gains. Yijiosa stepped out of the storm, and the dark clouds that enveloped the entire dark continent had dissipated. Warm sunlight shone down from the top of his head, spreading golden light for thousands of miles. He smiled at his lover and companions. "I'm back." They nodded elegantly. Only Kimimaro and 9 Orchid Flower said gently, "Welcome back." After that, it was time for Yijiosa to systematically explain the origins of the world, the management of the planes, the history of the rise of the raiders, the 12 deputies, and so on. Everyone was smart. No matter how complicated and difficult Yijiosa's explanation was, they could still find the crux of it. In short, if there were no accidents, they were probably the next batch of deputy gods. Although it felt great to reach the top, whenever they thought of Yijiosa's stubborn temper, they always felt that the workload in the future was really worrying. "You have spent the most time with me." Yijiosa turned to the doggies who had been by his side since the beginning. "It's not a problem to hand over the sub-god godhood to you. Kudo, can you stop hiding? Your personality is so good, and your worldview is so good that it's exploding. Although it's a physique that's the bane of death, please accept this godhood." Yijiosa dragged Shinichi Kudo over, pried open his mouth, and forced the shiny gem down his throat. What kind of joke was this? A good person covered in the light of virtue not working hard for him. Oh, no, a good person not becoming a god was simply insane. Let me tell you, in our team, only me, Kimimaro, and you are the most normal and harmless humans. You must become a god, and the 3 of us can play landlord together. Kimimaro smiled gently, and the doggies who knew this guy's cruel nature responded with indescribable looks. "Dedicated, I haven't known you for a long time, but I can see how you've changed." Yijiosa divided the gem. "And friendly, although you're a man-eating chimera ant, you're not as bestial and cruel as I imagined." Jin held the gem in his hand, deep in thought. Meluhim was drooling. He had never encountered food with so much energy in his 2 lives. He immediately stuffed the gem into his mouth, satisfied. "On the contrary. You have integrity. Yijosa squatted down and looked into Kulolo's eyes. I don't know you, and I'm not sure about your character. I know that each of you has more or less a dishonorable past, but I value the change of your character and your future choices more. Keep the godhood with me until I'm sure you have the temperament and ability to do so, and then take it away from me. Of course. Yijosa suddenly stood up and looked at everyone. Except for Kudo, if the rest of you don't intend to become a deputy god, I allow you to keep the godhood until you find your own successor. Kudo held the fluorescent grass ball, and his face turned pale as if he was very uncomfortable. I don't intend to. Can I spit out the godhood? Yijosa complained. Can you spit it out after you've eaten it? Yes. Kudo said very firmly. It didn't go down at all, and it's still stuck in my throat. I can spit it out. It went down. Yijosa and the rest of the dogs. Shinichi Kudo held the fluorescent grass ball, like a huge mushroom, curled up in the shadows of the ruins. His whole body was surging with the aura of very, very, very sad. For a moment, everyone seemed to see Kudo's resentment rising from the ground, transforming into a huge, scythe-holding, cloaked Grim Reaper. It was extremely terrifying. Yijosa and the rest of the dogs. No wonder he could kill the entire top management of Meteor Street. This was the man contracted by the Grim Reaper. However, even if he was contracted by the Grim Reaper, this kind of son of destiny with the protagonist's halo must be firmly grasped in their team. Otherwise, if he was not one of them, what if he was killed by Kudo? What people feared the most was not a stupid teammate, but the fear of being inexplicably arranged for one day. TSK. Sure enough, no matter how he thought about it, Yijosa was the worst, and Kudo Shinichi was the most terrifying. It turned out that humans were such terrifying creatures. He had learned a lot. After the enfeoffment system was completed, seeing everyone obediently gnawing on the godhoods, Yijosa felt very comfortable. Great, in the future, he could legitimately throw the workload to them. Oh yeah. Yijosa was very happy. He immediately became the company manager and arrogantly ordered the coachman Gilgamesh to take out the big eagle. Vimona to take them back to the human continent. After cleaning up the mess in this world, he would take Saishomaru for a stroll. Life was still very long, so long that it seemed endless. They still had a lot of time to teach each other. There were many things to do in the human continent. After the experience of fighting side by side, the humanoid chimera ant finally got a green card and became a member of the human minority. After coming back to life, he went to find his former companions after recuperating. All the members of the Inaku group gathered, but they were not touched or hugged. Only a nest of people were left staring at Saphiro's authentic face, with gritted teeth, wanting to punch him a few more times. Half a month later, Nitro, the chairman of the Hunters Association, retired, and Kimimaro took over the position of chairman and chose Kate as the next successor. Uchiha Madara captured Siso and led the tearful spiders back to Ukexent to continue his career with a 5-star rating. 9 Orchid Flower gathered the underworld, and after some investigation, carefully selected Chi. In AI Huandu Chewing Xing Fu Phlegm Stratagem. Ta. Forgive Pan Jian for his clumsiness. Jin asked Yoshi Asakura to go with him to Meteor Street to protect the natural environment. However, Yoshi Asakura did not expect that before the airship could land, he would be suffocated by the overwhelming stench of Meteor Street. When Jin shot him a distrustful look, Yoshi Asakura's face darkened. A big boss was a big boss after all. Yoshi Asakura burned down the garbage mountain, and under the hostile gazes of the Meteor Street natives, he sowed seeds, gathered rainwater, and activated his spiritual energy for construction. With an ultimate move that surpassed the soul, he smashed a giant puddle in minutes. The garbage was gone, the plants were here, the air was fresh, and water was coming out. The Meteor Street natives were dumbfounded. Yoshi Asakura came and went like the wind, hiding his achievements and fame. Jin quietly stirred up trouble, developing Meteor Street into a second black organization. As expected, only familiar recipes, familiar smells, and familiar idiotic subordinates could give him the most essential sense of return. That was what Jin, the big boss of the winery, thought. Shinichi Kudo was still fighting a battle of wits and courage with the gangsters. Ever since he had the magical device, the fluorescent grass ball, it was not a problem for him to even arrest a master with telekinesis. Therefore, it did not take long for Shinichi Kudo to make a name for himself in the industry. People gave him a domineering nickname, the God of Death is coming. It could not be helped. All the gangsters who went against Shinichi Kudo would eventually die a violent death for various reasons. At first, people thought that it was just a coincidence, but as time passed, countless facts proved one fact: Shinichi Kudo was a man who was contracted by the God of Death. The name Shinichi Kudo could stop children from crying at night. Kudo was speechless. He was clearly a famous detective. What exactly went wrong? How did he suddenly become the devil who ruled the underworld? Today, Shinichi Kudo was still justifying his identity as a normal person. After Sephiroth collected the godhood, he embarked on a journey of time and space. He had no intention of returning to his original world, but he wanted to find the woman who had saved his humanity on the path of reincarnation. He remembered the smell of her soul. Even if she turned into ashes, he could still put her back together. Even if Takashi Akashi Shirori was not his mother, she had done the warmth that a mother should give to him. She brought him out of hell and showed him the way to heaven. Sephiroth knew that he was only half-blood, just a one-winged angel, but the perfection of his soul had allowed him to be redeemed. Now, it was his turn to redeem her life. He wanted to send her home and bless her with eternal happiness. If Sephiroth's ideals were noble and decent, then Gilgamesh was simply the epitome of playboy and hedonism. After he returned to the human world, his ambition had been fulfilled and his life was happy. He happily invited Red and White Rose and had fun in the casino of the Kaidan Empire. They toasted each other, doubled the bet, and had a beautiful woman in his arms. He laughed heartily and returned with a full load. He had defeated countless bodyguards in the casino and was prepared to have a full night of care. However, unfortunately, he bumped into the Minister of Finance of the Republic of Bartogia, Ilomi, who was there to collect a debt from the Kaidan Empire. Gilgamesh. Smile gradually disappeared. JPG Ilomi. Smile gradually disappeared. JPG. At that time, the two of them stood in the aisle of the care center and looked at each other. Ilomi was still carrying a member of the Kaidan Empire's royal family who had just been dragged out of the bed, and Gilgamesh was still hugging Red and White Rose to her left and right cheeks. In the face of such a ridiculous fate, Gilgamesh's luck had never worked. At this moment, he once again recalled the fear of being dominated by Qian Shou and the heartache of having countless gold relics taken from him. Time passed slowly, and the days went by peacefully. In fact, there was no difference between daily life after becoming a god and before. It was just that it was much more convenient to do things. For example, going to a high-tech dimension to obtain a black technology mobile phone and realizing the dog group's cross-spacetime chat service. For example, going to a dimension where a domineering CEO falls in love with a dog to learn about dating techniques and put them into practice, only to be silently rejected. Another example was occasionally holding a dog group's party on a whim, holding the compass of fate and looking at himself in other dimensions. Was he playing with mud or what the heck was he doing? That day was the new year of the human continent. The members of the dog group gathered in the storm circle of the dark continent, ready to have fun and celebrate the new year. Delicious food and good wine were served, and Meluhim even generously brought his family. He did not expect it to be a young girl with white hair and thick eyebrows. She had clear blue eyes and 2 tubes of snot that could not be wiped off. She was shy and a little pitiful. Yi Jose X dogs. He did not expect Meluhim to like this. TSK, TSK, TSK. Meluhim, this is your. The corner of Gilgamesh's mouth twitched. Your woman. The word woman was forcefully squeezed out of the hero king's mouth once again. There was no other way about it. The young girl was short, thin, and looked like a washboard. He really could not call her a woman. But in order to save some face for his colleagues, he could only. Meluhim generously admitted. This is Wheat. Please advise me. Wheat bowed in a reserved manner. She was a little uneasy as she fiddled with the corners of her clothes, as though she was very uneasy. Meluhim held her tiny hand and looked at the dumbfounded crowd. He snorted. Oh. You're most welcome. Yi Jose reacted quickly. It was the new year, after all. Wasn't it supposed to be a gathering for a meal, a date, and a romance? His child had grown up and even brought a girlfriend home. This was a sign that he was about to get married. You're indeed friendly. Yi Jose was very touched. He glanced at the bunch of disappointing dogs and said meaningfully, You're only a year old and you already know how to flirt with girls. You can even bring one home. Unlike some people who are still single at this age. Saishomaru, who was no longer single, ate his fruit silently. The rest of the dogs. I have a girlfriend. Shinichi Kudo protested. When I return to Xiaolan, I'll propose to her. I'll never leave her again. He would never interact with non-humans again. QAQ's reputation would be ruined. The topic of proposal was indeed a sensitive one. Saishomaru paused. His eyes looked meaningful. Fine. When your proposal is successful, Friendly's children will have already been born. Yi Jose was like a mother-in-law meeting her son-in-law. The more he looked at Wheat, the more he liked her. Look at her. Picking up girls at 1 year old, having babies at 2 years old, and having 2 babies in 3 years. This is the highest level of being young and promising. Wheat's face turned red, and his mucus flowed. That. Look at all of you. You have money, power, looks, and figure. Why are all of you single? Look at Friendly. Although he's green all over, he's glowing because of love. Wheat was a little angry. That. Even I'm no longer single. Although it's for domestic sales, but. What the fuck? Don't tell me you guys are thinking of domestic sales? Yi Jose looked horrified. So you guys have already developed to this stage. Dogs. Master, please get rid of the sinkhole in your brain. It's good enough that they don't fight with each other. What's more, they like each other. Are they crazy? No matter how handsome their colleagues are, they're all white and black. Who wants to be with them? Especially a certain bandit leader who had returned to his human form. His previous criminal record. TSK, it's full of misdeeds. He'd rather fall for a dog than a human. Dogs are much simpler than humans. That. Wheat finally plucked up his courage and slightly raised his voice. I'm 13 years old this year. I'm not Lord Meluhim's woman. Please don't misunderstand. Meluhim's face turned even greener. Everyone. So you haven't gotten her yet? Because Lord Meluhim once found me and told me that if I beat him in chess, he'll let me be his woman. What? If he beat you, he'll let you be his woman. Isn't this bullying? How strong Meluhime's gaming skills were was obvious to all in the Inaguchi group. Meluhime is so shameless. He actually uses this method to woo a woman. I have to say that he's really smart. But what did this girl just say? I'm not Lord Meluhime's woman. In other words, Yijiosa and the dogs revealed a look of horror. Meluhime. They lost to him in chess. This girl. So far, she hasn't won. Meluhime's face turned greener. He almost gnashed his teeth and said, I'll win. I'll definitely win. Everyone. TSK, TSK, TSK. He's an ant that will be single for the rest of his life. No one knows whether it's the rebirth that gave him confidence, or the fact that he swallowed the godhead that gave him pride. Facing the fact that he didn't even win a single game against wheat in his previous life, Meluhime could still confidently say something like, if I win, you'll be mine. So, it's very likely that Meluhime won't be able to get a wife in this life, but whether he can marry her or not is still a variable. Meluhime is not stupid. He knows to bring a girl home and find another way. For example, asking who can cure Wheat's eyes. Wheat can't see, so he becomes her eyes. But, he hopes that she can see. Cure eyes. That's easy. Uchiha Madara, who often dug Sharingan in and out and put it in, immediately took responsibility for this favor. We Uchiha clan have done a lot of research on eyes. Isn't it just blindness? Just dig it out and put in a pair of eyes. Like this dash, without hesitation, Uchiha Madara poked into the eyeball, pulled it out, showed it off, and then put it back in, patted it, stretched his muscles and bones, and restored it to its original state. In the end, Uchiha Madara laughed loudly and said, it's very simple. He looked quite proud. Yijiosa X dogs. I don't really understand your Uchiha brain circuit, but Meluhime wagged his tail and nodded. Wheat, are you willing to accept the operation? I will anesthetize you, it won't hurt. Hey. Hey. Yijiosa X dogs. Let go of that girl and let me do it. There are always other ways, why do you have to be so cruel? However, before they could think of other ways, Uchiha Madara was already showing off his knowledge. Yomi is very useful. I have been to a lot of time and space. Since I want to change eyes, I will change to a pair of extremely powerful eyes. Your girl doesn't have much ability to protect herself, right? Meluhime nodded, yes. What eyes do you want? Byakugan, Evil Eye, Sharingan, Rinnegan, Magic Eye of Death, Eye of Contract, Eye of My King, Eye of Six Paths of Reincarnation, Bi, Duplicate Eye, or Levi's Dead Fish Eye. Yijiosa X dogs. I understand the logic, so what is the last Levi's Dead Fish Eye? Uchiha Madara had already taken out his mobile phone and started to sell. The source is very legitimate, don't worry. As long as the other party's genes are extracted, the corresponding eyes can be cultivated. Meluhime wagged his tail. Which one is the strongest? Uchiha Madara frowned. I heard that Levi's Dead Fish Eye is the strongest. The specific information comes from another time and space. It is said that Captain Levi is the strongest human in that world. Meluhime nodded, then this one. Okay, you make an order first. Uchiha Madara never forgot about the courier business, because the cost of crossing worlds is high, you have to pay the postage, a total of 2 billion. Xinghui. Remember to give a 5-star rating after receiving the goods. At this moment, everyone seemed to see Uchiha Madara being possessed by Illumi, not only receiving money but also giving a rating. So, black long hair and black long hair are both black, right? Meluhime readily agreed. Koloa smiled on the surface, but he cursed in his heart. In the end, it was his phantom troupe who delivered the goods. After a series of showy actions, Uchiha Madara and Meluhime established a deep friendship. In Yijose's, I was also so showy when I didn't have a broken leg. Everyone suddenly became very interested in the owner's past, especially his dark history. Speaking of which, the owner knew each of their dark history, but they knew nothing about the owner. There was no way to know before, but now they had the life chart. As long as a drop of the person's blood was recorded in the life chart, it would be like a projector or a player, and a large suspended screen would appear, starting to rewind the person's life. In order to dig up Yijose's dark history, the dogs could be said to be full of tricks. Even Saishomaru was rarely interested and joined in the game, drawing ghost cards, big and small kings. The person who drew the big king would play the past, dark history, and the person who drew the little king would play the future. It was just that this future was mainly the future of oneself in another plane. In other words, it was likely to be the tragic dark history of the other side. After the first round of the game, King Saishomaru, Little King Aizen, plus Medical Fern T. Chin Shu Pound. Barium Difficult School. Despicable. Lu Pan Jiao Jiang Ji. Lying Sun. Lying Sun. Ha, there was no blind spot in Saishomaru's past. After that, everyone saw a small, white figure projected on the life chart. He looked delicate and cute, wearing a beautiful kimono, as beautiful as a painting. But these images quickly passed. It seemed to be related to the person's memory and strength. Until he entered the teenage stage, the image gradually stabilized, and even there was a sound. The young Saishomaru went out to travel. When he passed by a mountain, he broke through it. When he passed by a hill, he flattened it. When he passed by a river, he cut it off. When he passed by a monster's nest, he destroyed it. When he passed by a cliff, he leaped over it. When he passed by a human's castle, he broke through the door. General Quan called him over. Saishomaru, I heard that you are looking for your own path. So, have you found it? Young Saishomaru nodded, using an extremely cold tone to say a word that was off the charts, domineering. Yijose X dogs. So this is the reason for you to advance in a straight line and destroy everything. Facing Yijose's, I didn't expect you to be like this. Saishomaru gaze. Saishomaru could not refute it. With a soft sound, the beauty frowned slightly, as if she was extremely dissatisfied. Yijose shuddered. Nothing. His desire to live erupted to 100%. All the dogs. Owner, you're really going to be eaten alive if you keep doing this. You are so beautiful, why don't you know how to deal with men? You can even use a honey trap. Saishomaru safely passed through the dangerous stage, and finally it was Aizen's turn. Aizen smiled. I am also very curious about my future in the parallel plane. After all, he was a man who had ascended in the day, blackened the entire Soul Society, founded the Palace of Void Night, commanded the 10 Blades and other halos. His future would definitely not be bad, and he might even dazzle the eyes of others. It was time to let his colleagues feel his future achievements. Aizen generously dripped a drop of blood, and the life wheel spun a little, projecting a person wrapped in black and locked in place. Then, a man's cold voice came from the picture. Aizen. Dr. Jiao. H. 10 years ago, deputy captain of the 5th Division, former captain of the 13th Division, later betrayed the Soul Society, founded the Palace of Void Night, and harmed the human world. His sins are grave. Now sentenced to 20,000 years in prison, imprisoned in the 8th prison of the Soul Society, Infernal Hell. Yijose X dogs. Fuck. Aizen is in prison. 20,000 years in prison, 666. All of them looked at Aizen with a calm down, brother expression in their eyes, as if they were trying to hint at something. Aizen. Smile completely disappeared. JPG. After that, Aizen's face darkened, and the crowd stifled their laughter. Everyone coughed and continued to draw cards. With the dark history of Aizen in prison for 20,000 years, they were not afraid of anyone. Just like singing folk songs in a KTV, everyone was afraid to be the first to perform. But as long as the one who sang the worst let out his throat and roared, everyone would gradually relax. After all, there was an even worse person at the bottom. What was there to be afraid of? He. In the second round of drawing cards, Jin got the king, and 9 Orchid Flower got the little king. Then, everyone watched a passionate and bloody history of the rise of the urban killer, and the prolapsed things I have to tell about the fake wine brewery, fuck. Jin, you're so miserable. You hooked up with a woman, and she slept with you for a month. I didn't expect her to be from the enemy organization. Jin, you're so miserable. You finally did something big in America, but you were betrayed by a spy from the organization. Jin, what kind of life are you living? Do you really have your own people in your organization? Oh, there are still people. Vodka. Oh my god, ha, how can such a stupid teammate be your assistant? Do you have a Pikachu with 100,000 volts in your brain? Jin. Let me go, I'm just a middle-aged child. However, there would be no harm without comparison. No one expected that 9 Orchid Flower, who was supposed to be the first vampire, was actually the greenest one. Jolan, I never expected you to be such a vampire. Orthopedics, Jolan, Yuheim is your sister. Fuck, you're so awesome. Oh my god, I didn't expect Yuheim to be so awesome. Not only did she sleep with White Moonlight, 9 Orchid Flower, but she also slept with Cinnabar Mole, Conical Zero. What a role model for a grown woman. She's a role model for us to learn from. Yijose chewed on the melon seeds and clicked his tongue in wonder. Inheriting the throne, marrying White Moonlight, marrying Cinnabar Mole, giving birth to children, defeating monsters, and winning the world. What an amazing operation. 9 Orchid Flower. Yuheim. I didn't expect you to become a dirty adult. After that, the black face of Aizen, the white face of Jin, and the green face of 9 Orchid Flower continued to be drawn. No one expected Yijose to be so lucky. He was able to avoid the minefield every time and always made others unlucky. The victims of the third round were finally revealed. Great King Qualuo and Little King Uchiha Madara. Qualuo was a thick-skinned person. Even if he was stripped naked and ran naked on the street, it would not be a problem. After all, the spider head had done many bad things and had no sense of shame. However, Qualuo did not expect that he would be flirting with a woman. Moreover, he would flirt with one woman after another. He wouldn't pay after flirting, and he wouldn't take responsibility after doing it. He might even take her life. However, women didn't like bad men. Everyone watched as Ku Luoluo changed women one after another. Young girls, pure lilies, coquettish roses, sexy supermodels. There were all kinds of them. There was everything. Yijose X dogs. What the fuck? Absolute scumbag. Rotten person. Removed from the Iniku group. Qualuo. Oh, do you really think I care? I only love the Phantom Troop. Then, because Ku Luoluo was too good at seducing girls, but he was a terrible person, he was beaten beyond recognition. Qualuo could understand that this was a man's jealousy towards another man. After fixing Qualuo, everyone finally got back on track. They planned to see what kind of future Uchiha Madara, the reliable member of the Iniku group, would have. Uchiha Madara was also quite curious, but he felt that his future would not be as strange as Aizen and 9 Orchid Flower. His memory stopped before he was reincarnated as a dog. It was the battle with Senju Takuma in the Valley of End. He was stabbed with a knife, so he should be dead. Right? Uchiha Madara directly stared with his samsara eyes. On the projection of the natal chart, there was a man with long white hair with his face, spinning samsara eyes, surrounded by truth-seeking balls, and holding the Balala Shao Moshian staff in his hand. The most terrifying thing was that there was a face of Senju Takuma at the position of his heart. He floated high in the sky and activated his ultimate move, Infinite Tsukuyumi. Senju Takuma, if I go against the will of the village, your choice is. Senju Takuma's face was solemn. For the village, even if it's you, I will not show mercy. Thus, 4 battles broke out, 10 tails were liberated, 100,000 ninjas died, and Infinite Tsukuyumi went berserk. And in the end, Uchiha Madara fell to the ground, exhausted. On the verge of death, he still muttered about Senju Takuma, comrades. Alright, in this case. We have already. Senju Takuma smiled gently. Uchiha Madara was relieved, and he died contentedly and peacefully. Yijosa X dogs. Oh my god, everyone is so powerful. Not only did Uchiha Madara destroy the world, but he also planted a man's face on his chest. Oh my god, you're actually this kind of Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Madara was dumbfounded. Wait, that's not it. It's not like that. This. How is this possible? Unfortunately, an explanation is a cover-up, and a cover-up is the truth. Thus, with Aizen's black face, Jin's white face, 9 orchid flowers' green face, and Uchiha Madara's dumbfounded face, the game continued. Kulolo. Oh, Kulolo was too ashamed to face anyone, his face was disfigured. The 4th victim was out, the great king Shinichi Kudo, and the little king Saishomaru. Everyone finally understood that Shinichi Kudo was indeed Shinichi Kudo. Since young, he had been a guy who died wherever he went. Due to Shinichi Kudo's existence, Japan, a small island nation, had never experienced a population crisis. It had always been stable, and he had made an important contribution to the country's family planning. Shinichi Kudo. If there was nothing else, he would hang up first amidst everyone's boos. Shinichi Kudo squatted in the corner again, feeling very depressed. However, no one expected that the high-energy warning ahead would come so suddenly. Saishomaru thought that he was safe. The so-called future was nothing more than the pursuit of dominance, the occasional beating of his younger brother, and the occasional finding fault with him. In the end, he realized that there was a crematorium ahead. The manipulation of the natal chart was very flirtatious, and it was very good at grasping the key points. Therefore, Saishomaru's voice that was as gentle as water was heard from the video. Ling, are you used to living in the village? Did anyone bully you? Did you wear the kimono that I gave you before? Yijosa. Dogs, what the fuck, he's openly cheating. When you encounter difficulties, pain, or sadness. No matter when, you can call me, Saishomaru, and I will rush to your side immediately. Yijosa's hands trembled slightly. Dogs shivered in the sudden drop of cold air. Saishomaru. Wait. There is no distance between us, and our hearts are closely connected. As long as we trust each other, there is nothing to be afraid of. As long as we maintain this longing, you have already satisfied me. Yijosa pulled out his long sword. Dogs retreated, and Saishomaru was completely dumbfounded. So, this is good for now. There is still a long time in the future, let me look forward to your feelings. Before that, take good care of yourself. Yijosa shouted, for Symbol's reincarnation - dogs. It's over, the scene of domestic violence. Saishomaru dodged quickly and kept saying, wait, listen to my explanation first. I don't want to listen. Listen to my explanation. I don't want to listen, I don't want to listen. Chapter 294. Until the green helmet fell from the sky, Yi-Josa realized that Saishomaru was not a dog of few words, instead, it was a sweet-talking wolf. This damn dog usually didn't say a word, and the average word from his mouth was no more than 15 words. The content was sharp and poisonous, and it offended people. His attitude was noble, cold, and pretentious. To be honest, he didn't expect Saishomaru to understand the sentiment, to be gentle and considerate, and to say sweet words, but there was no harm without comparison. It turned out that it was not that this damn dog didn't know how to say sweet words, but that he never had tender feelings for him. Listen to what this damn dog said when he flirted with other girls. How low and sweet the voice was, how sincere and touching the feelings were, how affectionate and sincere the words were, how rich and gorgeous the words were. A fancy confession, a perfect essay. It was more than 100 words, the meaning was deep beyond cognition, inside and outside. It meant the same thing: I like you very much, and I want to have a dog with you. How could Yi-Josa not explode? His Chilan arm had already picked up the severing of Descendant's sword, and his primitive power could no longer control the murderous aura of the river Ish lion. Even if he also felt that something was wrong, he couldn't listen to any explanation at this moment. At this moment, Yi-Josa only had one thought in his mind: damn dog, stop right there. Today, I will pull out all your dog fur. You want me to be green, I will make you go bald. Once a woman went crazy, the world would fall apart. Even if Saishomaru couldn't say it out loud, his heart was full of grievances. He couldn't face Yi-Josa's anger head-on, he could only keep dodging. Little by little, he led the scene of domestic violence elsewhere. At least, even if he was beaten by his own woman, at least he wouldn't let his colleagues see it. Saishomaru felt that he would be laughed at by his colleagues for hundreds of years, but it was better than being laughed at for thousands of years. I swear, I don't have other women. Saishomaru sidestepped the yin and yang transformation and ran for his life. I said, my partner will only be you. Yi-Josa fiercely shaved off a tuft of dog fur on Saishomaru's tail. Damn it. A man's vow. Don't think that I don't know that men's so-called oaths are just to fool women. I swore to my mom that I would never play this game again, but in the end, I still played it. Dogs that followed closely behind to watch the commotion. Ha! The owner's dark history had appeared, deceiving his old mother. Saishomaru's heart ached as he looked at the bald patch of hair. His desire to live instantly soared to the extreme. Do you think I'll fancy another woman after meeting you? Dogs applauded in unison, expressing that Saishomaru was indeed rich and powerful. Dogs could still spit ivory out of their mouths. This compliment was very soothing and could usually solve the hysteria of women. After all, didn't women like it when men praised them for their beauty? Unfortunately, Yi-Josa was a fake woman. He was even angrier. Who knows? A wife is not as good as a concubine is not as good as a prostitute is not as good as a thief, and a thief is not as good as a thief. Although my wife is Yui Aragaki, I also like Nanjo Aino. Eating delicacies for a long time will cause high blood pressure. Who knows if you'll choose clear soup noodles for your health? Dogs applauded in unison. They felt that their owner and Saishomaru's quarrel was a perfect example of dogs are taller by 1 foot, and dogs are taller by 10 feet. Look at Saishomaru. Not only was his tail about to go bald, the pretty boy's face had also turned green from anger. Saishomaru's eyes were cold as he gritted his teeth. Without another word, he pulled out his natural tooth. Yui Aragaki and Nanjo Aino, who are they? Damn it, you damn dog, you actually pulled out a knife at me. Yi-Josa took out the lid of the pan and swore that he would let this gray dog have a taste of the pan today. What's your relationship with them? My dream lover. Saishomaru's hair immediately stood up. There was no helping it, there were only a few left on his tail. For no reason at all, he was tricked to death by his parallel universe self. Now that he found out that his partner had another dream lover, how could he live his life? Dogs applauded in unison, giving a thumbs up for tonight's 8:00 large-scale love and ethics drama. This relationship wasn't a single track, but a dual track. One was pouring his heart out to a little girl, and the other was meeting his new lover in a dream. Damn, the rich circle was really messy. However, it was said that all lovers in the world must be separated after a long time, and separated after a long time. Thinking about it, dogs couldn't escape this fate either. Just like in Yamato dramas, if dogs didn't experience the bitterness of, you love me, I love him, and he loves you, how could they understand the meaning of perfect love? Ichijose and Saishomaru had both pulled out their swords, and it seemed like they were going to fight to the death if there was any disagreement. All the dogs were taken aback. Was there a need to choose Team A to mediate or Team B to fight? Of course it was C, to watch the fun and place a bet. Come, let's place our bets. Let's see who will bow down to whom first. It's been 10 years, don't you know me? Saishomaru frowned. It's been 10 years, I even know what the dogs want to do when they pout. How can I not know you? Ichijose gave a critical hit. Never quarrel with a woman. Dogs were instantly terrified. Owner, you. What exactly do you observe about us? I never thought that you were such an owner. It turns out that you already have bad intentions for your own dogs, peeping into our privacy every day. So you gave us godhoods as hush money. Dogs guessed the beginning but not the end. After all, Saishomaru was a dog, he couldn't really do it to the person he chose. Although he pulled out Tianxingya, it was just a pretense. His poker face looked the same whether he was angry or happy. Not to mention that his colleagues couldn't guess what he was thinking, even Ichijose couldn't figure out what he was thinking. He quickly approached Ichijose and used his bald tail to tighten around her waist in no time. The next second, Tianxingya directly blocked the long sword and used his other hand to activate all creations. Even if he lowered his head, he had to do it in his own nest. How could he let his colleagues watch the fun and place a bet? In an instant, the power of space poured out, and light and shadow changed. Saishomaru grabbed Ichijose and held her tightly in his arms. Because of the speed, there was only a trace of shadow left in the air. When the dogs came forward, there was no sign of Saishomaru and Ichijose. Tisk, he's fast. Uchiha Madara stared at his samsara eyes and was ready to fix his child. If he was bullied by Saishomaru. Well, it was hard to say who would bully who. Aizen smiled and said meaningfully, men, being fast is not a good thing. Dogs. Aizen, it turns out that you can also talk dirty in prison squatter. Aizen shook his head and reminded them, what I mean is, don't be in a hurry to find people. Otherwise, you may be the man who dies the fastest. Dogs. For some reason, they seemed to understand something. The night sky of the dark continent was very beautiful, with stars everywhere and the Milky Way hanging low. The bonfire on the ground was still dancing happily, and the fragrant roasted whole lamb exuded a moving fragrance. Everyone was happy as they intertwined with each other. And the life plate that was left on the side flickered, turned into thousands of fluorescent lights and disappeared, still chasing after its owner. Without the owner, they always felt that there was less liveliness and indecency, but the big bosses didn't say much. After all, everyone knew that they wouldn't always be together, and there would always be time to separate. The general trend of the hunter continent had merged and was developing in a more complete direction step by step. When they handed over the power in their hands, they could fly freely in the sky and swim freely in the sea. Except for a few, many people missed their original world very much. Although they used to dislike it, unexpectedly, after leaving for a long time, what they missed the most was still the people and flavor of their homeland. I want to go back and reorganize the Void Knight Palace, Aizen said. The Ten-Blade Society is the foundation, and the Soul Society will also provide me with talents. There are too many small worlds, and each world must have a manager. Aizen was a busy man who couldn't stay idle. The management work that others avoided was taken over by him as soon as he took it. Not only that, he even helped his colleagues and the owner to do the work, and he was even happy to do it. Fortunately, the Inaguchi group wasn't handled by Aizen alone. Yoshi Asakura was shrewd, Saishomaru was overbearing, and Nine Orchid Flower was relatively gentle. With the help of these experienced people, everything was on the right track in the shortest time possible. I'm going back, Shinichi Kudo said with a smile. I finally understand why you didn't let me go before. After the war, it was the time to disband. But unfortunately, Kudo was stuffed with a godhead. A mere mortal with a rare treasure, even if he returned to his scientific world, he could still do a series of unscientific things. Unless he completely merged with the godhead, no one in the Inaguchi group would let him leave. They nodded slightly, and Uchiha Madara patted Shinichi Kudo's shoulders that were getting wider and wider, and said with a smile, I heard that you're going back to get married. Remember to invite us. Okay. Do you need me to bring some special gifts? Uchiha Madara suggested, for example, a pet elf from the Pocket Monster world. Your wife should like it. Kudo's face was wooden. No need, thank you. After a rare gathering, there was a long separation. However, since they were bound by fate, there was no difference. As long as Yijiosa's journey would continue, they would eventually get together. Yijiosa opened her eyes in a trance and found that she had been taken to a paradise. Saishomaru removed her long sword while she was in a daze, hugged her tightly, and gently rubbed her hair. A place with beautiful mountains and clear waters, a place full of spiritual energy. This was a primitive, undeveloped land. It was also a fairyland that was filled with spiritual power and brilliance from both inside and out. The clear water, the ink-colored mountains, the white mist, the lush green trees. There were gorgeous palaces with pebbles at the corners, long winding corridors that seemed to have no end, and the walls were made of warm jade. Even the painted eaves and carved beams were as beautiful as a dream. Like a dream, a dream. Intoxicating and luxurious. Yijiosa was immersed in the magnificence of interweaving colors, dazzled. There were many objects of uncanny workmanship in the world, but nature was the real artist with ingenuity. Beautiful mountains, beautiful water, beautiful scenery, beautiful house, beautiful heaven and earth. It seemed that quarreling was too much of a spoil. Where is this? A gift for you. Saishomaru noticed the tense breathing of the person in his arms and gently raised the corner of his mouth. I wanted to bring you here after the wedding, but I didn't expect it to be so long in advance. Yijiosa looked at him in a daze, as if seeing a luxury property certificate flying toward her. For me. Saishomaru nodded slightly. No one is more suitable than you, isn't it? So, don't doubt my feelings. Saishomaru restrained his arrogant temper and said seriously, I'm just your Saishomaru, and you're just my Yijiosa. What choice you and I make in the parallel universe, that's their life. In our life, there's only you and me, and only each other. They are not me, and I will not be like my father. Saishomaru slowly lowered his head and kissed the corner of her forehead. Yijiosa, there are some words that I will only say once. I only have one heart, so I can only hold one person. Saishomaru whispered, but how many people are there in your heart? Oh, damn, I'm going to ascend to heaven. Saying the right words to the right person at the right time in the right place, even if Yijiosa's heart was as rough as a dog's fur, she was extremely moved at this moment. Sure enough, the usual routine of romance novels was very useful. What to do when your girlfriend is angry. Nonsense, kiss, hug, give the property, express your feelings, and propose. It's guaranteed that the anger will subside. At this moment, Yijiosa couldn't even remember a moment ago, let alone stroking the dog's fur. The water in his brain surged back and forth, shaking like a tsunami. It's him, it's him, it's him, it's him. His dream dog, Saishomaru. Oh, damn. This affectionate confession, this solemn promise, this sincere tone, this beautiful gigolo. What? Men's promises are all fake. Bullshit, I'd rather believe a man's words than look back at my broken legs. I'd rather believe that Illumi can get rid of a single partner than believe that Saishomaru will stray. The right time, the right place, and the right people, you and I have deep feelings for each other. I've said everything, and I've finished the divination. If I don't do something, won't I feel sorry for myself? I've already gotten the property certificate, and if I don't get married, I'll be a hooligan. Saishomaru has already sent himself to me. If I don't do it, should I wait until Children's Day? Although he's a woman, he has a man's heart. It's just a stab, and as long as he's happy, it's not a big deal. After all, she's someone who will accompany him for the rest of his life. Yijiosa was so excited that he hung on Saishomaru like a koala bear. He directly kissed her lips. Even if his kissing skills were terrible, he still had the advantage of being young. Men like women who are enchanting and charming, but they also like women who are pure and pleasant. But men don't think that once a man becomes coquettish, there's not much for women to do. You. Ugh. Saishomaru was directly pressed to the ground. Although the grass under him was soft, this is the wild. No matter how much he wants his own woman, he still wants to do it in the palace. He heard that this kind of thing is very hard for women. But why is Yijiosa so desperate? Let me tell you, I'm playing with fire. Yijiosa snatched the line from the domineering CEO. When I self-immolate, I'll definitely do the splits on you. The great monster's eyes deepened, and he silently looked at the pair of hands that were messing around on his body. He grabbed them and suddenly straightened his body. In an instant, the world spun, and the two switched positions. Immediately after, it was like a storm of kisses. His clothes fell on the grass, contrasting with his skin. The dark green became more verdant, and the white became more exquisite. The silver-white long hair and the jet-black long hair intertwined, just like their movements, lingering. I want to be on top. Yijiosa protested. Phew. No. His protest was ineffective and was rejected. Yijiosa struggled violently, but his resistance was quickly suppressed, and he was pleasantly teased. When his body became strange bit by bit, when the pink color stained layer by layer, when the mischievous hand slid all the way down to the most private place. First, it was his neck, then his waist. It must be said that men's learning ability in this area was amazing, especially the dog demon, who was dominated by instinct. He could always grasp the sensitive point of his partner's slight gasp. Little by little, he went deep, lurked, and tested, pretending to be harmless. Saishomaru stared at her, his voice hoarse but revealing a hint of lust. Are you okay? Yeah. Inch by inch, he moved forward, pretending to be considerate. Saishomaru pressed on top of her, not letting her see his expression that was getting more and more ferocious. But the words that came out of his mouth were unprecedentedly gentle. Now. Are you okay? Yeah. A little uncomfortable. Saishomaru suddenly laughed, his dull laughter vibrating in his chest. Even his usual cold face was sprinkled with a sense of wanton flirtatiousness, as if the snow on the branches had suddenly turned into a gorgeous red plum. Silly woman. What a silly woman. Since you didn't refuse, then. I'm going to enjoy my main course. The foreplay was over, and it was time for the climax. Don't regret. Saishomaru's voice was a little cold, but unusually lingering, but even if you regret, I won't stop. The next second, like a warship breaking through a huge wave, like a raging dragon stirring up rivers and mountains, like thunder tearing the sky, like a sharp sword piercing through brocade. He blocked her scream, suppressed her resistance, and pressed her firmly under his body. He crazily conquered her territory, marking every inch of it with his own label. What was rationality? No one could remember anymore, only the tumbling in the sea of desire, and the instinctive desire. From the blazing sun to the setting sun, from crying to moaning and moaning, from begging for mercy to intermittent gasps. The grassland was a mess. Twilight lifted the clouds and covered the twinkling stars. After an unknown period of time, there were only these words left in Yijiosa's muddle-headed mind. Damn, it hurts. Brother, steady. Don't be afraid, do it. Damn, it feels good. Yijiosa was forced to spend a honeymoon in the luxury real estate world, and this honeymoon was quite unspeakable for him. Although he enjoyed it, it was really too much time, and his partner was too cruel. Saishomaru was indeed a master who had been abstinent for more than 400 years. Once the seal was broken, he completely let himself go. It was as if a moving iceberg had turned into a volcano that could erupt at any time. No matter where or what position he was in, he could control it with ease. Yijiosa didn't know how much time had passed, but his whole body was soft as if he had no bones. This body was already extremely beautiful, and after indulging in lust, it seemed to have developed to another limit. At least he liked to look in the mirror more and more. Was this narcissism? Today was another chaotic day. Yijiosa thought that he had really lived a dog's life. Who would have thought that he had started out with dogs just to pick up girls? In the end, the past was like smoke, and it was better not to mention it. But speaking of which, why did he feel more and more tired recently? It must be because Saishomaru was too good at making trouble. Yijiosa was in pain and happy at the same time. Follow me back to the west. Saishomaru hugged her and let her play with his hair. After that, I will split the territory of the dog clan into another space and bring them here. Not staying in your hometown. This place is more suitable for monsters to live. Saishomaru explained gently. The core of the white dog clan was moved here. Manifestation is the key, and it can protect the bloodline of the dog clan. Saishomaru was a thoughtful and meticulous person. Although he was straightforward, he was not without subtlety. We have been to so many worlds, and in the end, it was always humans who dominated everything. This is effect. With this effect, there must be a cause. Perhaps the cause will change because of the intervention of you and me, but change comes with a price. Even gods could not do whatever they wanted. They could change the cause and effect within a reasonable range. For example, Yijiosa had once proposed the theory that vampires and humans could coexist. This was something that could be realized in the laws of the other world. In that case, there was no price to pay for making this change. Because achievable meant a possibility of future development. However, if there was an antecedent in history that must die out and used power to change everything, then there would be a price to pay. For example, the mother clan of Kalapika in the world of hunters, the Cave Tower clan. Their true origin came from the Dark Continent, which was something outside the rules of the human continent. Although they were also humans, they had the power given by the Dark Continent, so they had to be eliminated and eliminated. Therefore, even if Yijiosa wanted to, he could not change it. If the Cave Tower clan resided in the Dark Continent, then they would always be a clan that existed. But unfortunately, the rules of the human continent did not welcome outsiders. Do as you wish. Yi-Jose smiled. By the way, the divine spark of integrity is still in my hands. Do you think he can be trusted? His loyalty is only given to his own team. Saishomaru lowered his eyebrows. He can be the adjutant's adjutant, but he can't stand in a high position. Instead of choosing him, why not choose a Lumi or Chi? Chi? Ha! Yi-Jose was a little confused. Why them? Saishomaru's lips curled up slightly. Do you remember the half-demon that I told you before? As I said, there were half-demons in the history of the White Dog clan. The half-demons that can be recorded in the clan are all very powerful. Saishomaru patted her back gently and said, that half-demon died on the battlefield. He was a hero. But, he probably did not die, but had some other encounter. You mean? He is the ancestor of Raider. Yi-Jose said dryly. Raider belongs to the cat clan, how could his ancestor be the dog clan? Saishomaru said, the aura of the bloodline can't lie. That half-demon is the descendant of several generations of my ancestors. Even if he is only half-blood, Inuyasha can't be compared to him. His descendants will inherit these characteristics, white hair, sharp claws, and bestiality. As for Inuyasha, his descendants will gradually return to being human. From the first time I saw Inuyasha, I never thought of bringing him back to the West to be educated. I have my own selfish reasons, but he is more suitable for humans. Yi-Jose sighed. It was rare that Saishomaru was not arrogant. He analyzed his own impression of Inuyasha in depth. He was really honest and straightforward. If he did not say it, who knew what he was thinking? Unless Spider dies and Koluoluo treats us as his second home, it is impossible to control him now. In a sense, Koluoluo is loyal to the point of stubbornness. But, his character has not grown to the point where he can stand side by side with us. Yi-Jose nodded. Saishomaru's pillow talk was too good. He suddenly felt a little sleepy. I understand. Sigh, a little tired. You should control yourself in the future. I am exhausted. Saishomaru frowned. Tired? Are you sick? Yi-Jose was seriously injured yesterday, but now he was full of energy. It was just a pleasure in bed. Why was she so sleepy? Especially in the past few days, she slept all day and had no appetite when she woke up. She could only eat fresh fruit. My body is great, but I feel very tired. Yi-Jose yawned. Oh right. He pushed Saishomaru's chest and urged, the green fruit this morning was delicious. Go find some more. Saishomaru's face turned green when she heard this. The green fruit was very sour, but Yi-Jose liked it and ate it very happily. She had brought it to him with toothpicks. How could he not eat it? He could not. His fangs were about to fall off from the sourness. Women were really fickle. Before, she was still clamoring about eating delicious food every day. Now, she only loved green fruits and didn't eat anything else. TSK, I really can't spoil her all the time. Although he was muttering this in his heart, Saishomaru still got up and flew out of the palace as fast as he could. Yi-Jose pinched his face and rubbed the flesh on his belly. For some reason, he felt that he had become much rounder. Especially his belly. These days, he had a small belly. TSK, TSK, TSK. Sure enough, he was full of lust and fat. Speaking of which, it felt good to be the king god. With the integration of the old godhood and the birth of the new godhood, his body was not only full of vitality, but even his period did not visit. It was really worth celebrating. It was time to celebrate. Saishomaru, tell me, am I fat? Saishomaru handed her a green fruit and didn't even look up. No. He didn't know what was wrong with Yi-Jyosa recently. She asked him a bunch of questions every day. She forced Saishomaru to the point where he could say the right answer as soon as he opened his mouth. But I seem to have a belly. You're wearing too many clothes. Is my face getting bigger? No, the mirror is small. If your mother and I fell into the water, who would you save? Saishomaru was speechless. The dignified prince of the Western Kingdom had to face such inhuman questions one day. Fortunately, he was not a human. To save you, my mother can fly. Yi-Jyosa was speechless. He didn't expect his mother-in-law to have such a trick. She could fly. What should he do? He couldn't do it anymore. Yi-Jyosa and Saishomaru stayed in the New World for nearly 3 months before they decided to return to the Western Kingdom. But before they returned to the Western Kingdom, the life chart that hadn't moved for a long time suddenly flashed. Ha! Yi-Jyosa held the life chart and smiled. The king god has entered the cycle of reincarnation and has been reincarnated. I let the life chart record his aura. I'm going to find him after he reincarnates. Now. Let's go. Yi-Jyosa smiled. He's just born. Give him some blessings and let his life be smooth. He sacrificed a lot for the world in his previous life. In this life, he might have suffered a lot. But he used to be a god. Even if he lives a hard life, he will definitely stand at the top of that world. But I still want him to. Og. Yi-Jyosa's voice hadn't finished resounding in the air when the fate plate in his hand suddenly left his hand, and under the abrupt constriction of Saishomaru's pupils, Yi-Jyosa felt a throbbing pain in his lower abdomen, and then his vision went black as he directly fainted. Saishomaru held her tightly in his arms. He didn't know what happened to her at all. He just instinctively released a terrifying pressure that spread across the sky and scared away all living creatures. He thought there were invisible enemies around him, but he didn't know that there was something wrong with Yi-Jyosa himself. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. In his helplessness, he subconsciously wanted to ask for help from his mother and colleagues. Almost immediately, he carried Yi-Jyosa and escaped into time and space. He appeared in the Cloud City in the Western Kingdom within seconds. Lord Saishomaru. Lord Saishomaru Lord Saishomaru is back. Saishomaru pursed his lips and didn't say anything. He quickly rushed to the sky above the Cloud City and attacked the peak as fast as he could. Like a white light, he overflowed with pressure wherever he passed. Countless small demons looked in the direction he left in fear. Lord Saishomaru seems to be more powerful. That aura. He's more terrifying than the Fighting Tooth King. By the way, what is Lord holding in his arms? It looks like a woman. There was a sudden silence. Not long after, all the demons exclaimed in surprise and revealed a look of disbelief. Oh my God, Lord Saishomaru, who had been single for 400 years, finally married me. That is really a strong female warrior. In the palace in the city amongst the clouds, the Lingyue king leaned lazily on a soft couch and was enjoying the grapes that were peeled by ferocious Pill. However, he did not expect that his son would suddenly kick open the door and attack him with a powerful aura. Lingyue raised her eyebrows. As expected of my son. I didn't expect that. He could reach such a realm. Before she finished speaking, Lingyue was so shocked that she stopped eating the grapes and sat up from the couch. She stared at Yi-Jyosa's stomach in Saishomaru's arms as if she had discovered a new continent. Mother, Lingyue's hands trembled and her beautiful face turned pale. You idiot. Put it down. Put it down. Guards. For the first time, Lingyu abandoned the image of a noble lady and shouted, soft cushion, demon jade, big demon flesh, give it to me. Mother. Lingyu narrowed her eyes. She was an extremely beautiful woman, but when she was angry, she was even scarier than Saishomaru. Didn't the Fighting Tooth King teach you to recognize the aura of your spouse? Saishomaru was stunned. Saishomaru, what has gotten into your head? Lingyu said coldly. I know you aren't interested in that kind of thing, but since you have already done it, don't you know how to learn? A large group of demons surged in majestically. Some of them made beds, some of them played with flesh and blood. In the end, he was her son. Although Lingyu was angry, she wouldn't put the cart before the horse. The child is hungry. Saishomaru was stunned. What child? I said, she has a child in her stomach. Like a thunderbolt from the clear sky, Saishomaru was dumbfounded, and his entire dog was completely dumbfounded. He had thought of all kinds of possibilities, but he didn't expect it to be like this. The stronger the bloodline, the more flesh and blood it needs to absorb. Lingyu rolled her eyes. When I was pregnant with you, I still felt hungry after eating a big demon every 3 days. What about you? What did you give her to eat? If the fetus doesn't absorb enough, it will absorb the mother's strength and nutrients. If she wasn't strong enough. What do you think? Do you know why 16th Night died at the best age? Lingyu rarely mentioned a person's name. In order to give birth to your father's bloodline, she was drained. Saishomaru pursed his lips. Your child. Lingyu looked at the unconscious Yi-Josa and sighed. It's probably a child that can't be fed enough. If you can't catch delicious food, it will pester its mother. I don't want to ask you what kind of opportunity you had and how you reached such a height. I just want to remind you. The stronger the bloodline, the more risky and difficult it is to give birth. I'll be here. You go and catch delicious prey. Saishomaru held the knife tightly. To what extent? Of course, the stronger the better. What are you waiting for? The faster the better. The stronger the better, the faster the better. Saishomaru really didn't have the mood to catch prey. He just wanted to guard in front of the palace. He was silent for a while and finally remembered that he still had a phone. Therefore, for the first time in 800 years, Saishomaru took the initiative to open the Inika group chat. Fu Chang, Yi-Josa is pregnant. The child is mine. There was a moment of silence in the group. He didn't even have time to type before he was overwhelmed by a series of emoticons and 666 sent by his colleagues. Chapter 295. Ever since Yi-Josa had woken up, he had been maintaining his listless appearance. Even the ahog on top of his head was listless. His mind was exploding like a barrage of bullets, and 4 words were brushed up all over his head: I'm pregnant. In his stomach was a child. Crazy begging. Really crazy begging. He was really stupid, really. He had thought that the reason why the great aunt did not visit was because of the physical mutation, but he did not know that once a woman was pregnant, she would say goodbye to the great aunt. He was really stupid, really. He only knew that the plump face and the narrower clothes were because of the big heart and fat body, but he did not know that after a woman had a baby, she would become plump. He was really stupid, really. He only knew how to taste the taste of beauties, but he had forgotten about the effective equipment such as a raincoat and contraceptive pills. Brother Diao, I'm sorry for your 18 centimeters of lofty spirit. Brother Diao, I'm sorry for your deep meaning of carrying 18 centimeters. From a mighty and unyielding man. He was born as a delicate and soft little loli, then grew into a great beauty that could topple a nation, and finally gave birth to a little cub who did not know whether it was a human or a dog. Yijiosa really felt that his fucking experience was enough to be made into 24 hours of surprise, and be immortalized for 100 years. It was a concentration of masculinity, face-slapping leveling, exploration and discovery, and the animal world and other factors. This was a strange plot that even an 8 o'clock melodrama could not twist out. It was not easy for him to live. It was really not easy. It was as if the malice of the universe was concentrated on him. He had to be like the chief's brother. He never expected that. After experiencing the pain of the great ant, the weight of the big cup, and the whipping of the big gold stick, he still had to experience the pain and torture of a big belly. Why? To be honest, if he had not experienced this personally, he really could not imagine how tiring a woman's life could be. No wonder the pregnant women in the news were depressed before and after giving birth. Wasn't this nonsense? The happy ones were others, but the tired ones were themselves. If you have the ability to cross the gates of hell for 10 months, you can try it yourself. Don't just stand there and talk. What was worse was that giving birth did not mean the end of the trouble. Sometimes, it was often the beginning of another kind of trouble. A good daughter, who had been a princess for more than 20 years, became a queen for a month, was a queen for 10 months, and finally became a nanny for a lifetime. The more he thought about it, the sadder he felt. The more he thought about it, the sadder he felt. He did not know where this emotion came from, but it was tormenting him to death. But at this moment, Yijiosa couldn't hold it in anymore. He clutched his stomach and curled up into a ball. He didn't want to see Saishomaru's handsome face for the time being. Therefore, when Saishomaru dragged the finished demonic jade to Yijiosa's bed, he was hit by a slipper. The great monster's expression did not change. He calmly took off the slipper from his head, not spilling a single drop of the demon jade soup. He gently placed it on the low table and said, "Eat first. You can scold or hit me if you want." Yijiosa had his back to him and was resting with his eyes closed. It was as if a cold war had just begun. Saishomaru had been pacified by Yijiosa for a long time, so he naturally understood that she was like a dog. She was just angry, but if she was pacified, she would not do anything. It was said that even if one had not eaten pork, one would have seen a pig run. Although Saishomaru was quiet, he was not bad with words. He lay down on the bed with his clothes on and tentatively reached out his hand, wanting to hug her. Yijiosa slapped his hand away. "Don't touch me." He firmly held her in his arms, patted her back and said, although it was very sudden, "You really don't like this child." Yijiosa's face was twisted. Pregnancy made him stupid for 3 years, and his IQ was not high. Then, if you don't like it. Saishomaru used the character of a loyal dog and said scummy words, "You don't have to stay." Yijiosa's face instantly turned red. Oh my god. It appeared. A scumbag who asked his girlfriend to have an abortion after she was pregnant. Stupid dog, I'm telling you, don't even think about it. Not to mention the door, the window, and the dog hole, I won't even leave a gap for you. Don't even think about it. Yijiosa said, "I didn't expect you to be this kind of dog. I carried your child, and you actually want to force me to have an abortion." For some reason, he felt that Yijiosa had not grasped the main point. No, she had never grasped the main point. "No, I like it and look forward to its arrival," Saishomaru said slowly. "But compared to it, I care more about your feelings. If you are willing, please give birth to a child for me. I will love it as much as I love you. If you are not willing, I will respect your decision. I just want to tell you that my decision is based on you." Saishomaru's eyes swept over the hot, demonic jade, and continued, "No matter what choice you make, I will bear it." Yijiosa stared at Saishomaru's mouth in a daze. It didn't take long for him to go from a sad state to a calm and peaceful state. After a while, it sublimated to the old deer not only running around, but also hanging on a tree state. So, tell me your decision. Yijiosa clenched his teeth. Give birth. Beheading was just a small scar. After giving birth, it would be over. If it really couldn't be helped, he would perform a C-section. Anyway, it wasn't like he hadn't been stabbed in the stomach by a predator before. It was the same thing. Right? Are you still angry? No. Do you want to hit me? No. Eat something. Oh. After the dog fur was smooth, his partner became a little angel and didn't make a fuss at all. Saishomaru slowly stood up, took the demonic jade, scooped the soup, and put it into Yijiosa's mouth. It's a little sour and a little sweet. What is it? Yijiosa looked at the thick rust-colored soup carefully. It looked like blood but didn't smell fishy at all. There were soft lumps floating in the soup. Is it sour plum soup? Saishomaru lowered his eyes. Yes, plum soup from the demon world. Yijiosa didn't suspect anything and drank it up. Saishomaru comforted her to sleep and watched her close her eyes quietly. Then he asked the little demon to take the soup away. Demonic jade was not plum soup, but the general name for the heart of a big demon. The heart full of demon power and pure bloodline was worthy of the word jade. But although there were big demons, they were rare. Besides, as the king of the Western Kingdom, he had no reason to kill other demons for demonic jade. A king must have the bearing of a king. Hunting was once a tradition, but it was not the way he should do it. Paper can't wrap fire. If one day Yijiosa finds out the whole story, then Saishomaru can be sure that she won't vent her anger on him, but she will feel sorry for him. After all, big demons had more or less human form and intelligence, which was no different from human in Yijiosa's eyes. Plus, women were naturally sensitive and maternal. Hunting was just the law of the jungle for the demons, but for her, it was the threshold of conscience. And his domineering behavior always made him take a detour when he met her. He was a king, so he should have the responsibility of a king. He was a man, so he should have the responsibility of a man. He was confident that he could do it without neglecting his family and country. Saishomaru quietly pulled away from Vientiane. Thinking of the coordinates and species recommended by his colleagues, he decided to do something with them. In EVA 8102's parallel plane, the invincible force angel was just about to open its mouth and swallow the Zero machine when a blue-winged giant suddenly descended from the sky, and Budo's bonded spirit slammed into its body. In an instant, blood splattered everywhere. The strength angel instantly went from being lively to being on the verge of death. His entire body was convulsing, and the 2 rolls of toilet paper on his hands were trembling, but they chose to submit to Susanu's blade. That's right. Robot Zero escaped death, and the humans in the ruins were stunned. Before they realized what had happened, they saw a huge white dog descend from the sky, pick up the strength angel, and fly into the sky. Susanu paused for a moment, and immediately turned his cruel gaze to Robot Zero. He confirmed that this was a daughter of luck. Oh, I can't eat her, so forget it. Uchiha Madara yawned, flapped his little wings, and flew away. The humans who were mysteriously saved were speechless. They all understood the logic. So, was that huge creature with wings an angel? In the parallel plane of Silver Immortal Soul number 2333, the arrogant Heavenly Tao crowd was pressed down on the floor and rubbed against each other. The man named Su was tricked by Moon in the mirror and fainted on the corridor. 9 Orchid Flower elegantly walked forward, and lightly poked his neck with his fingertip, and cut out a bit of blood to taste. Not human. Nutritious, edible. Aizen smiled gently, and lifted the man like he was carrying a sack, and directly split open the space and left. This guy is nice to the white-haired brat. Go and see if that brat is the same species as him. 9 Orchid Flower sized up the brat's white curly hair, and sniffed the blood. Human. Since it was a human, there was no nutritional value. Let's take Hollow away first. Soft skin, tender flesh, and strong strength. It was most likely a good dog food. In the parallel dimension of Pokemon number 88, the legendary Pokemon, Chow Meng, had just killed the laboratory members, destroyed everything, and leaped into the sky when a sack was placed over his head and viciously beaten up. After a series of beatings, the pitiful little thing in the sack was drowned by the world's malice before it could open its eyes to see the world. Kimimaro shook open the sack and carefully sized up the prey, but he couldn't tell what it was. Therefore, Kimimaro could only ask the hero king behind him. It was said that this guy had lived for thousands of years, so he was definitely very knowledgeable. What is this? It looks very strong. Kimimaro touched Chow Meng's tail and strong thighs, feeling that it was enough for Yi Josa to eat for 3 days. Gilgamesh casually glanced at it. A pink kangaroo. Kimimaro. If this is a pink kangaroo, then you are a golden rice flower. In the parallel world of Naruto number 9527, under a towering ancient tree that was tens of millions of years old, a beautiful woman slowly raised her hand. She was about to pluck the fruit that the divine tree had borne. Her name was Kaguya, a princess. But after experiencing the fickleness of human nature and the malice of the human world, she felt that it was meaningless for humans to guard the divine tree. She wanted to change it. She was curious. She wanted to pluck and eat this divine fruit. When her slender, crystalline fingertips touched the fruit, there was a sudden explosion in the sky, like the wrath of a god. A fiery red figure swooped down at lightning speed. In a matter of seconds, the fruit was plucked by Yoshi Asakura. He landed on the ground with a smile, and when he looked up, he saw Kaguya's dumbfounded face. Kaguya, 172 centimeters, goddess height. Tall and beautiful. Yoshi Asakura, 165 centimeters, young man's height. Best at acting cute. A height difference of 7 centimeters was not the difference of a pair of high heels. It was the difference between heaven and earth. Kaguya frowned. Yoshi Asakura's expression turned cold. Kaguya was about to say something, but Yoshi Asakura had already put away the divine fruit. With a wave of his hand, he tossed a dog to Kaguya. Go, teach her telekinesis, Yoshi Asakura ordered Koloa. Koloa was not a good person. He directly used his telekinesis to baptize Kaguya. Why did you choose such a troublesome method? Just kill her after you steal it. She is the daughter of fortune. This fruit is something she must obtain. If we take it, we have to exchange it for something of equal value. Yoshi Asakura said. Go teach her telekinesis, the 4 major elements, the 6 major elements, and the Mizunin style. Yoshi Asakura chuckled. I'm not a good teacher. It doesn't matter. Kaguya was indeed the daughter of destiny. Not only did she learn telekinesis quickly, but she also developed it to the extreme. She was blessed with great fortune. She developed a destructive move in the shortest time possible and decided to take back the divine fruit. At that time, Yoshi Asakura and Koloa had already escaped. In the parallel plane of Ghost White Book number 520, a great demon, Zangma, had been running amok in the realm of devils for a long time and had never suffered a defeat. Unexpectedly, he was beaten to the ground by Sephiroth today. His fluffy tail was cut in half. A green ant tasted it with relish and said, "It's delicious and nutritious. Take it away." Zhangma's heart was cold. He struggled violently, but was ruthlessly suppressed. In the end, he was beaten into a dried fox and carried away. It was the retribution of the saying, those who do too much evil deserve to die. He never thought that one day he would be taken away and made into a stew. Stew. What a bald fox. Only Shinichi Kudo and Jin settled down after they returned to the main plane. One continued to be a detective, and the other chose to live in seclusion. After receiving the message from Saishomaru, they both prepared gifts. Shinichi Kudo had always been meticulous. He asked for Lan's opinion and suggestions and bought a lot of books and clothes for babies. After packing them, he gave them to Uchiha Madara and sent them to the Westland. Jin read the message several times and asked her unreliable teammate for a bottle of vodka. She got a lot of suggestions such as, send a hen, send turtle soup, and send money. She then put them into practice. Not long after, the roars and curses of all kinds of strange creatures came from the backyard of the palace in the Westland. Sometimes, there were even miserable screams. At that time, Yijiosa was eating a divine fruit when he heard another cry. What's going on? Without raising his head, Saishomaru replied, killing a pig. His colleague had sent him a bunch of strange-looking items. To be honest, apart from the strength angel and the divine fruit, only the pink kangaroo looked like a prey. However, the rest of the prisoners were too presumptuous, especially the vixen. She was prettier than a bald man, but she had a terrible temper. She howled every night, making Yijiosa unable to sleep. Saishomaru wanted to release him like how he released Guishu, but now he was annoyed. So, the king of the Westland remembered the hatred and ordered the little demons to set up a boiler and firewood. Then, he stewed Zhangma's 2 broken tails in front of him. Zhangma thought. Bastard! How dare you stew my tails? Even if I die today, even if I roll into the pot from here, I will fight with you until I perish together. 15 minutes later. Chapter 296. The Tibetan horse on the tip of the tongue was brought in front of Yijiosa. Yijiosa slurped the soup and ate it happily. The fox imprisoned in the kitchen was still looking at the sky gloomily. He did not know that Saishomaru was thinking of locking him up for another year. The strength angel was huge and its meat was delicious, so it became Yijiosa's main dish. The Tibetan horse was tender and expensive, so it became a delicacy that he only ate occasionally. On the other hand, Chow Meng was colorful and magical, so he finally escaped the calamity. If time could be rewound, the strength angel swore not to provoke humans anymore. It would definitely sit high in the sky, obediently be an angel. Who cares about Adam Lilith? Who cares about destroying Li Lin Berserker? Isn't it really good for everyone to be good? If he had let Earth go early, why would the people on Earth make things difficult for him? Unfortunately, it was already too late to comprehend the profound meaning of life. If demon life could be restarted, the Tibetan horse swore to be a good demon that abides by the law. If he did not bring the little demon to patrol the mountain and rob houses along the way, the white-haired, Azura demon would not have targeted him. If the demon world could live in peace and love each other, if one side was in trouble, all sides would help. Why would he be hit by the demon and become a dish? If fate could. No, don't do it again. Chow Meng felt that being a clone of Dream was pretty good. Because it looked too strange, it was safe and sound. Not only did it have 3 full meals a day, it also didn't need to bleed and cut off its flesh to roast. Other than the screams of the 2 neighbors? People nodded. It basically had nothing to do with it. As long as it was obedient and silent enough, it would be spared. Today, the 3 dishes in the kitchen were still uneasy about their fate. Fortunately, 3 months passed in a flash. Yijiosa, whose belly was already showing, finally found other rations, that divinity of unknown origin that could not be digested. It was like a shelled egg, lying quietly in Yijosa's palm. The person in question narrowed his eyes in satisfaction and stuck out the tip of his tongue to lick the divinity. Not long after, a wave of fragrant air flowed from the tip of his tongue into his throat, filling his limbs and bones, bringing him endless strength and warmth. His abdomen was very warm, as if a hot water bottle had been applied to it. It felt comfortable from the top of his head to the tip of his toes. Every time this happened, Yijosa, who was supposed to be sleepy and anorexic, would be refreshed. He was so energetic that he felt like he could run 100 laps around the equator. The baby in her belly was growing very well, like a strong and healthy chives growing in the ground. Pregnancy was long and boring, and many things were taboo. Even though he didn't need to avoid anything with his physique, Saishomaru was extremely paranoid. He had gone from a handsome young man with a poker face to a poker face housekeeper. Jin sent hens and turtles. Saishomaru sniffed the hens and threw the turtles away. Kudo sent maternal and child supplies and books. Saishomaru glanced at them and took the precautions during pregnancy and guide to intercourse between two sexes and gave the remaining items to Yijosa to play with. Uchiha Madara dragged Tentails from another Naruto plane as dog food. It was said that this was a combination of chakra. The meat was strong and nutritious. It was a magical ingredient that was hard to find in 10,000 years. And in order to let that plane continue to have the role of Tentails, he thought about it carefully and asked the Demon King Sephiroth to help and go through the motions. As a result, after the 9-tailed beast chakra merged into one. Amidst the huge storm and the manic flying sand and stones, the ninjas' nerves were stretched taut as if they were facing a formidable enemy, and the Kage-level experts were holding their breath. A handsome man with flowing white hair, dashing eyebrows, and starry eyes appeared. He was an extremely handsome man, Sephiroth. He was clad in armor and had an imposing aura. He held a long saber in his hand and exuded a heavy pressure. Sephiroth was very familiar with the steps of destroying the world, and his acting skills were also amazing. He was confident that he wouldn't fail. However, Sephiroth didn't expect that his first appearance would be in the center position. This is too much. Haruno Sakura instantly turned into a 4-panel manga style, like Godzilla, and directly shouted out the thoughts of the majority of women. This face. I can't do it. Why is he our enemy? Uzumaki Naruto. So you always do it because I'm not handsome enough. Sasuke is the best to me. Sasuke Uchiha. So women are visual creatures that change their minds so quickly. Naruto is more reliable. Impure Yondaime, human-shaped tailed beast. Impure Senju Takuma, ha ha ha. Why does this humanoid-tailed beast look even better than Uchiha? Impure Senju Takuma, brother, shut up. I told you many times, don't look at the beautiful Uchiha. Impure Senju Takuma felt wronged, but Uchiha is really beautiful. The group of ninjas and Impure Uchiha Madara. The serious and awe-inspiring style of the battlefield was gone forever, so Sephiroth had to take the initiative to attack, killing one enemy with each strike, but because his strength was too strong, even if Senju and Uchiha joined forces, they still couldn't suppress him. So the question was, what should he do to make a perfect ending? Sephiroth thought about it carefully and recalled Uchiha Madara's repeated complaints about raising naughty children. Finally, his eyes lit up and he thought of a wonderful idea. This idea could not only ensure his style and elegance, but it could also complete the ending and even compose a new height, leading the humans in this plane to define and pursue the strongest. Sephiroth suppressed everyone and smiled. The path of the strongest is destined to be lonely. Without an opponent, what is the point of living? But he committed suicide. Everyone in this plane. This war can no longer be fought QAQ. Unfortunately, the Tentails that Uchiha Madara and Sephiroth used so much effort to catch was rejected by Saishomaru because it was too ugly. Uchiha Madara said angrily, "You have the ability to reject us, but you don't have the ability to let us see Ijosa." Ever since Ijosa became pregnant, Saishomaru refused to see any visitors and personally took care of all of Ijosa's chores. It was said that even the little demons serving Ijosa were carefully selected retainers, such as a kappa that was secretly monitoring Ijosa, and an old man from the White Dog clan who had experience in giving birth. "No," Saishomaru rejected flatly, "no man can go in." "Why?" "I heard that when a woman is pregnant, if she looks at a man's face more often, the child will look like that man." Uchiha Madara's face twisted. "Saishomaru, are you stupid too? Who is pregnant? Where is your judgment? Is it really okay to leave the West to you? TSK, 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 at the end of the day, it is still a dog. Its brain is not very bright, yes, not very bright. She only needs to look at me." Saishomaru frowned and drew his sword. "What are you thinking? Do you want to fight with me, Saishomaru?" Uchiha Madara. For some reason, he always felt that Saishomaru was born with the special sensing ability of, "I know you are talking bad about me." So, is it really reliable to leave the West to Saishomaru and Ijosa? Today, Uchiha Madara was still worried about Shiongozi and his wife. In the end, the homeless Ten-Tails was delivered to the Palace of Night by Uchiha Madara. Aizen was a guy with a strange sense of aesthetics. Most of his subordinates looked strange and unsightly. In his eyes, Ten-Tails was probably a kawaii kitten. Aizen, who received Ten-Tails, could not help but shed tears of emotion. As expected of Uchiha Madara, you can actually get such a magical creature. Urkiola respectfully handed over a handkerchief. "Lord Aizen, why are you crying?" 40th Blade did not understand. Aizen was a real man who did not even care about Benyu. Why would he cry for a small gift? Could it be that this creature, who looked uglier than Yumi's blade, was more powerful than Benyu? No reason. Aizen put on his black-rimmed glasses and sighed. "It's just that it's too spicy." Spicy? Urkiola did not understand the joke of Lord Aizen, who stayed in the Palace of Night every day, browsing Weibo and scrolling through his phone. In the future, if Grimmjow is disobedient, let Ten-Tails wake him up. Yes. Grimmjow. Leopard head crying. JPG. While Ijosa was pregnant, he worried every day about whether he was going to give birth to a human or a dog, or whether he was not a human or a dog. Would he give birth to a litter after 10 months like a human, or a litter after a few months like a dog? If there was a genetic mutation, he would be pregnant for 3 years like Neza's mother. He would not be able to live on. He was anxious and told this worry to Saishomaru. Because of his special identity and stable divinity, the fetus in his arms was well protected. And because of the protection of the life chart, no one could understand the situation of pregnancy. One or a litter, how it looked, and when it would be delivered, all became unknown. In the history of the White Dog clan, such a situation had never happened. Even if a white dog and a human were to mate, the offspring would only be half demon. But when it came to the uncertain factor, Ijosa, his past experience could not be used. Not only Saishomaru, but even Lingyue Wang could not be sure what kind of dog the child would be. Saishomaru patted Ijosa's head and comforted, "I'm here, don't be afraid." Ijosa fell asleep, satisfied. Saishomaru softened his brows, rubbed her legs, held her hand, and watched her sleep. Finally, he gently placed his palm on the bulging belly. Separated by a layer of quilt and belly, he felt a small push. The fetus was very sensitive and would instinctively feel the approach of demon power other than its mother's. Not only was it restless, but it also constantly reminded him of his existence, and could even be fierce through the belly. It was very lively and healthy, so it must be a very strong baby. Don't cause trouble for your mother. Saishomaru said softly, get out when the time is up. His colleagues were bored to death and would probably barge in before long. Although the owner belonged to everyone, his wife was his. He would not be so generous to let his wife pat someone else's head. Therefore, it was better to give birth to the baby. With this baby, he could share the burden of his colleagues, so they would not have to come to Yijiosa for a sense of existence. Those years, the tragic dog life that was arranged for me when I was in my mother's womb, shocking. Socialist values actually did this to a poor little dog, Yellow Cabbage, in the field, on the correct way to use the Western country's national milk dog. Time passed quickly. Saishomaru's wedding preparations were already completed, and he was just waiting for Yijiosa to agree. The car was already on, and the destination was also here, so he had to pay for the tickets. Yijiosa thought to himself that he did not know how long she would be pregnant for. Since he had nothing to do anyway, he might as well get married. As Yijiosa was so bored, he desperately wanted to find something to do. Saishomaru had no choice but to be considerate of her body and change the deadline so that she could get married in her best state. However, he did not expect that Yijiosa felt that getting married was very troublesome, and he only hoped to settle it as soon as possible. Do we have to get married? I've already carried the baby, and I'm not running away. Why bother? Getting married is troublesome. Yijiosa scratched his head. Well, since we have to get married sooner or later, why don't we do it first? What? Do it after giving birth to the baby? No, 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 if you didn't say it, I would still be living happily. You've already said that this is a task that has to be completed, and I will be under pressure. If you have pressure, you won't be able to eat well. It's better to settle it as soon as possible. Hurry up, get married. We can get married anytime. Therefore, in the 9th month of Yijiosa's pregnancy, she put on the fluffy wedding dress of the White Dog clan, stepped on the graceful and luxurious fluffy carpet, put her hand in the equally fluffy hand of Saishomaru, and walked to a nest of fluffy elders together. The entire West Kingdom was immersed in laughter, and the lively atmosphere was more lively than the previous one. The fireworks and firecrackers sent from another world brought extraordinary liveliness. Whether it was monsters, humans, or half-monsters, they all rose and fell in a joyful atmosphere, and the whole world celebrated together. Compared with the liveliness of the outside world, inside the palace of the West Kingdom, in the territory of the White Dog clan, the wedding was low-key and luxurious, and the atmosphere was solemn and dignified. From the marriage to the vows, the highest standard etiquette of the White Dog clan and the customs of human society were used all the way, not only to fulfill the obligation to respect both husband and wife, but also to tell all monsters and humans that this human bride was a member of the White Dog clan, recognized and respected. Many people came to the wedding, not only the Inaku group, but even the family of Fong Dike and Inuyasha were brought to the scene to participate in this grand wedding. After the ceremony, the guests and the host were happy. After all, Inuyasha was Saishomaru's younger brother, and Saishomaru had the idea that his brother could only be beaten by himself, so he would never neglect him on such a big occasion. He heard that when Inuyasha and Guwei got married, he invited him, but because he was in a different world, he did not attend the wedding in the end. However, he understood this half-monster boy's intention. Since he regarded him as his brother, if he still cared about it, wouldn't it seem that he was stingy? This invitation was a return gift, and it was also Saishomaru's subtle way of expressing that the grudges of the previous generation were already in the past, and you and I are still blood brothers. But unfortunately, Inuyasha's tolerance for alcohol was really not good. After being forced to drink by a group of strong young men from the White Dog clan, he lost his sense of direction and fell asleep on the table. He even drooled in bliss. Among the guests, Chi Fong was the first to speak. The Cape Sync Sneak Neon Team. Tanbai. Toad K. Juan. Do you want to discuss it with me? Tomb. Q. Huan Nan E. 2 pits Shilong E. Female instant spring lizard. What kind of bath is it? Poor Chi. Cho Yukai hard to masturbate. Mate Sangshue is still there. Right Huan Ho of Desolate Sea. Liangdi is stirring up trouble. Xingjing. Huai Chi Chio waved his hand to be eunuch Wu. Jing Meng Papa Song. Shansui Barium Wood. The CI League. Ha. Infestation. The scariest thing was Kikyu and Nalumi, who smiled lovingly at their son and brother for being able to seduce a powerful female monster. Chi. Chi. Silly Cole Mang. Since QOE. Cape Sync Sneak Screen. Grub Flag G Hurting Agent Play Chi. Old Skeleton. An Ant Eunuch. My scabbard is quietly sharpened. Alumi's long hair fell to her shoulders. When she did not speak, she was gentle and elegant, like a quiet beauty. Not long after, a white dog who was bewitched by her appearance came over and said 3 times, "Miss, you're so beautiful, I like you." The new clan leader has married a human, we won't be stopped. Alumi swallowed her sweet food and replied 3 times, "I'm a man, I guarantee it." Do you want to touch me? Under the White Hound youth's dumbfounded gaze, Ilumi continued, "It's 300 million for touching the Adam's apple, 600 million for touching the chest, and 900 million for touching the private parts. No discounts." Kikyo was very touched. As expected of mommy's Ilumi, you're really a perfect rival. I'm so touched that I'm constantly thinking about bringing in more income for the family. Chi. Old bones. My heart is filled with admiration for Anne's wisdom. Song's skill is skillful at dusk. Ilumi had broken the dog's heart. The white dog youth retreated with the dog food. He could only seek comfort from his own kind. The guests in the wedding banquet realized that the bride and groom, as well as some unfathomable and mysterious guests, had already disappeared. At the same time, in the most heavily guarded secret place of the Hound clan, Yi Jiosa was sweating profusely. His wedding dress was crumpled into a ball. He spread his legs and howled. He was in so much pain that he did not feel well. Little did she expect that he was going to give birth before the wedding banquet was over. This child's tricks always caught him off guard. First, she got pregnant out of the blue, and then she gave birth out of the blue. It was killing him. Yi Jiosa had never thought that giving birth would be so painful. Motherfucker, it was too painful. It was a pain that no human should bear. He would rather be beaten to death by the raiders than endure this kind of torture. It was too painful. The dogs outside the delivery room were running around anxiously. In the delivery room, Saishomaru's hair had been plucked by Yi Jiosa until he was bald. Mixed with the smell of blood and screams, Yi Jiosa was in so much pain that he could not even cry. There was only the word pain in his mind. He just wanted to end this door of life as soon as possible. Cry. No, he did not have the strength to cry. After a few rounds, he did not even have the strength to scream. If he had not stuffed the godhead into his mouth at the critical moment, he would not have the strength to hold on. Yi Jiosa felt that being a woman was too painful. He felt sorry for himself and all the women in the world. It was not easy to live. In the future, he must write a sentence in the Code of Rules: when a woman gives birth, the father of the child must exchange souls with the woman. Motherfucker, perfect. This torment lasted until dawn. Yi Joseph panted heavily. Finally, he gave birth to a pair of healthy dog demon twins. Kill. Saishomaru. Are they? Lawless. Oh no, daughters. They are all boys. Yi Jiosa was speechless. Chapter 297. according to convention. The child born from the union of a demon and a human was half-blood, a half-demon. However, when the convention was extended to Yijiosa, it became an accident. Not only did she give birth to a pair of twins, but both brothers were pure-blooded demons. Perhaps it was because of the fraternal twins. The two children did not look alike. Although Yijiosa could not tell the difference between the two wrinkled baby faces, he could tell from the hair color, pupils, and shape. Who was who easily? The eldest son was a pure white dog. Had a head of soft silver-white fetal hair and ignorant golden eyes. There was a lightning-shaped golden demon pattern on each cheek, and even the moon pattern on his forehead was suffused with a golden-red luster. He was the pup with the strongest aptitude in the history of the White Dog clan. If he could grow up safely, become an outstanding great demon, he would definitely be able to open up another world and become a legend. The youngest son was also a pure dog demon. But the color of his body gave Yijiosa an ominous premonition: black and white fetal hair. A small black and white fluffy tail. Plus a pair of clear blue eyes. He had confirmed the image. He looked especially like a husky that had transformed into a human. The most terrible thing was that the two children were still young. Although the potential in their bodies was not bad, they could not stabilize the changes of demonic power. From time to time, they would transform from a human to a dog. From a dog to a human. Barking and crawling all over the bed. And when they returned to their dog forms, Yijiosa covered his face deeply. He once again recalled the fear of being dominated by the husky back then. Oh my God! Once his youngest son turned into a dog. That was a husky of royal blood. 24K was a stupid husky, terrifying to the extreme. What sin did he commit? In his previous life, he raised society and was tricked into becoming a Meluo. In this life, the baby he gave birth to was actually a husky. Could it be that he gave birth to too much Tai Chi, causing the child to develop in the direction of yin and yang, black and white? That's right. Actually, according to the color classification, pure yang was the black and white combination. That was the husky. The pitiful wolf of the East had been the scapegoat of the husky for so long. It was really pitiful. After confirming their bloodlines, the two children were their own. Their aptitudes were the best in the history of the dog clan, even better than Saishomaru back in the day. The elders of the dog clan were so happy that they couldn't close their mouths. As for her youngest son's true husky form, Ling Moon King said, "This is the first time I've seen a cub of this color. It's very beautiful." The husky grinned with its baby face and peed all over Saishomaru. However, Saishomaru, who had just become a father for the first time, was still immersed in joy, unable to extricate himself. He placed the two cubs side by side. The more he looked at them, the more he liked them. Xie Jian was so touched that he wiped away his tears and said in a choked voice, "Lord Saishomaru, Xie Jian is so touched. I thought that you, who pursued tyranny, would spend the rest of your life alone. I never thought that I, an old man, would be able to see the day when you hold a child. Actually, Xie Jian has always been worried that you won't be able to find a wife." Due to excessive excitement, Xie Jian's mind was in a whirl. He completely said what was on his mind. "Madam is really affectionate and loyal to be willing to marry you." Paw! The sound of a chestnut exploded. Xie Jian screamed and hurriedly knelt on the ground to beg for forgiveness. Seeing that Saishomaru had no intention of pursuing the matter, Xie Jian knew that the person in question was in a good mood, so he carefully probed Lord Saishomaru, the two young masters. "Should we give them names?" As soon as he said that, not only Saishomaru, but even Ling Moon and Yijiosa were stunned. No wonder he felt that something was missing. It turned out that the children hadn't been named yet. Naming children was a big deal. A name would accompany them for life, and it was also the shortest incantation. The king of Tusks lived a rough life. He directly named his eldest son Wan and named his second son Yiksha. Little did he know that the word Wan was very common. If it was in the countryside of Huaxia, it was basically no different from Go Dan, Go Xing, and Er Go. As for Yiksha, it was extremely common. In other words, it was almost at the same level as Chui Hua, Osmanthus, and Ru Hua. If it wasn't for Saishomaru's style and connotation, making the name Saishomaru transcend the dimension and become a symbol of God, the dignified heir of the Western Kingdom might really be reduced to the fate of, the murderous Go Dan next door. From this, it could be seen that naming should be careful. This was the embodiment of the cultural quality of the father's generation. Ling Moon and Saishomaru looked at each other. The latter sat cross-legged beside Yijiosa, held her hand and said, "What do you think about names?" The child was Yijiosa's, so Saishomaru was willing to let her take the initiative. But the second Yijiosa opened his mouth, he regretted it. How could he forget? Yijiosa didn't have the potential to be an elegant scholar. Name? That's easy. Let me tell you, a cheap name is easy to support. When I was a child, my mother used to call me damned monkey. Yijiosa drank a mouthful of pork knuckle soup and continued. Since the children are all dogs, what are you worried about? The eldest son is called De Go, and the younger son is called Xiao Go. Isn't it enough? Saishomaru's delicate facial features were slightly twisted, revealing an indescribable expression. You don't like it? Oh, okay, it's a bit tacky. How about this, the eldest son is called Ruhua, and the younger son is Ruyu. Hey, don't be unhappy. Forget it, how about the eldest son is called Yibushio, and the younger son is called Yibushio? Shinamaru stared at him with a dark gaze. Yijiosa fully used his imagination. Where I come from, we pay attention to pairs. How about Ji Xiang and Rui? If it doesn't work, how about Peking duck and Dongpa pork knuckle? Northern heating and southern delivery. It's just a nickname. Don't be so serious. Can you relax? Saishomaru looked at the two children lying on the ground, his eyes filled with pity. How about Yi Aotian and Yi Ritian? Yijiosa recalled the main character upgrade style in his mind. Dolua and Dupo. Fighting the heavens, fighting the earth, fighting the bulls. Oh no, soaring clouds. White impermanence, black impermanence. Give me some reaction, Fu Chang. Fu Chang. How about we name the children Fu Gua and Fu Min? Why do you always refuse silently? Let's just call them cabbage and broccoli. Saishomaru sighed. How about Azura and Rakshasa? Weren't the names of the gecko family all like this, Alumi, Maluki, Chi? Ilua, Aluka, and Kaluto. Their names were connected head to tail, forming a string. Saishomaru liked this new idea. Although Azura and Rakshasa were not unique, because of their extremely fierce nature, not everyone was qualified to carry their names. For example, his kill did not have the ability and foundation to suppress the meaning of the name. But since they were Saishomaru's sons, they were worthy of these two names. However, Yijiosa did not agree. No. This fucking sounds like a villain's name. The ugly ones won't live past 3 episodes, the handsome ones will live until the middle, and the handsome and strong ones will only live until the first 3 chapters of the finale. There's no epilogue or epilogue. No. Saishomaru was speechless. Shisomaru, who had lost the battle, had no intention of disobeying Yijiosa. He only fed her some soup and water. When she closed her eyes and fell asleep, he gently picked up the two children, wrapped them in a fluffy tail, and walked towards the other side of the room. Even though they had not been born for long, the growth of the two children was quite astonishing. Perhaps the dog demons had extremely strong adaptability to the environment. Once they left their mother's scent and entered an unfamiliar space, they would instinctively transform into the appearance of a puppy and crawl around on all fours. The room was full of Kenku members. They stared at the two puppies, their faces full of curiosity. They crawled and rolled around in the circle formed by Saishomaru's fluffy tail, barking from time to time. They looked quite energetic. The little white dog was more sensitive. After sensing its father's scent, it settled down and curled up in the fluffy tail to reduce its presence. The black and white little husky was not so smart. He howled and crawled all over the ground. Then, he stuffed his whole head under his brother's tail. His legs were trembling, and he looked quite like Yijiosa. Where is she? Resting. Do all dog demons grow so fast? They can actually crawl already. 9 Orchid Flower showed a rare curiosity. He carefully reached out and gently placed his hand on the little husky's back. The little husky did not react. Seeing someone stroking his fur, he did not care whether it was good or bad and happily arched his back. The little white dog was quite vigilant. When 9 Orchid Flower's scent approached, he sensitively shrank into his father's fluffy tail and curled up into a small ball. This is your eldest son. Very vigilant. Uchiha Madara did not provoke the little white dog. He felt that if he got any closer, the child would explode. But this one is a bit careless. There was an indescribable sense of familiarity. It was like seeing its owner become a naughty child again. The Kenku group was happy to have 2 puppies. The atmosphere was happy and harmonious. However, after going around in circles, the topic still returned to its original point. Had the child been named yet? If he didn't have a proper name, did he have a nickname? If not, did they have nicknames? None. TSK. It seemed that it was time to brainstorm. Unfortunately, when it came to naming, no one was willing to give in. Dogs all felt that they came up with good names, but their peers rejected them. It was as if they were deliberately making things difficult for themselves. Gilgamesh from the mythology faction said, "The Son of God naturally has to have a name that is worthy of it. If you don't choose Zeus or Yahweh, then let's use the meaning of the obedient sword, splitting the sky and opening the sky. What do you think?" Uchiha Madara from the ninja fantasy faction sneered. When drinking water, they think of its source. Their bloodline comes from their parents. Why not use spring and source? 9 Orchid Flower from the Magic Dark faction chuckled. Monsters should look like monsters. Invincibility and immortality are the best meanings. Shinichi Kudo from the Humanoid Weapon faction smiled bitterly. I'm not good at naming. White Snow Pill and Black White Pill. Sorry, I won't join the discussion. Koluo, who accompanied you to the Hoon Meteor Street faction, was browsing through his phone. Because of the cheating system of the black technology in the high-level planes, he could learn a lot of things from other planes. At this moment, he had found the name he needed. Koluo smiled meaningfully. Yijiosa is from Huaxia, right? Yes. Some things in Huaxia are very powerful, and almost everyone knows them, Koluo said. For example, Huxiangjingqi Pill, Lu Wei Dihuang Pill, Wuji Baifeng Pill, and Jujube Pill. Among them, Jujube Pill is the most powerful. It is said that nothing can compare to it. What do you guys think of this? The big boss of Aizen from the Black and White Eating faction smiled and then put Koluo's head on the table. Isn't your surname Yi? I heard that the name Yi Liangqin is not bad. You can try it. Yoshi Asakura from the Nature Conservancy faction said, "Snow, plum, frost, and chrysanthemum are all elegant things. You can start with these. After all, most of the clothes you wear are white as snow and red as plum." Sephiroth, Meluhim, Jin, and Kimimaro didn't participate. They just squatted outside the fluffy tail's circle and stared at the two puppies curiously, covetously, in shock, or lovingly. Sephiroth said, "The owner is obviously a human, but he gave birth to puppies. His genes are so magical." Thinking about it this way, his half-human bloodline wasn't a monster at all. It was very normal. Meluhim said, "This smell is too fragrant." Jin x Kimimaro was speechless. The two of them didn't say anything. They carefully looked at Saishomaru's eyes and quickly dragged the green ant away. Saishomaru took his youngest son back from 9 orchid flower. His youngest son barked in dissatisfaction and patted him twice, as if he was protesting something. Saishomaru slightly raised his eyebrows. He stuffed the stupid boy into the fluffy tail's circle and covered it properly. He didn't let him out no matter how hard he struggled. "You will follow whoever gropes your fur." There had never been such a big-hearted puppy in the White Dog clan. It seemed that this kid had to be watched more closely than his brothers. At least, before this stupid kid had the ability to protect himself, he must not be released from the Western Kingdom. Otherwise, he would definitely be abducted. The argument with the room didn't stop until the magic hour. Saishomaru took the final judgment and left. He also sent the two little ones to Yijiosa to drink some breast milk. As for whether his colleagues would fight after he left, it didn't matter. The Western Kingdom Palace had been in disrepair for a long time. It was time to extort a sum of money for construction. After a quarter of an hour dash, Wuji and Xingqin. Yijiosa rubbed the little bellies of the two puppies, squeezed their little paws, and looked at them as they hiccuped. He said softly, "They are quite standard, but also a little delusional. However, if the eldest son is called Wuji, how about the youngest son is called Tai Chi? The combination of black and white makes Tai Chi very vivid." Wuji and Tai Chi. Saishomaru said gently, "I thought the stars also have black and white meanings. The sky is black, the stars are white. During the time of fate travel, there is no limit to eternity." Wuji and Xingqin. Saishomaru said, "This is my blessing and expectation for them." Yijiosa thought for a moment and said, "All right, you can decide on his real name. Wuji and Xingqin don't seem too bad with any surname. Then, I'll decide on a nickname. It's easier to raise him with a cheap name." "Okay." Yijiosa rubbed the two puppies. Looking at his eldest son's snow-white clothes and his youngest son's black and white clothes, he said, "Then let's call them glutinous rice balls and sesame balls." Glutinous rice was white and soft, and sesame seeds were black and white. Not only did they sound delicious, but they could also be described quickly. Sure enough, it was a great loss for the Chinese language department that he didn't study in. Glutinous rice balls and sesame balls grew up very fast. One day they opened their eyes to see the world, 3 days they got out of bed and ran around. 6 days they couldn't catch up with Yijiosa, 9 days they were playful and rolled around in the mud. Yijiosa got up and gave the two puppies a beating. On the 10th day, they were lying in bed and resting. The puppies finally learned to be obedient. Saishomaru never cared about Yijiosa beating the children. He was trained by his mother since he was young. It was not a big deal for his son to be beaten by his mother. As long as the children didn't die, they would be trained to death. This would become their combat experience and capital to survive in the future. Once they walked on the edge of life and death, they would be grateful for today's beating. Ever since he stepped into the palace, the two puppies started barking. They seemed to think that their father was the pillar, the person in charge, the master, and would definitely stop their mother from spanking them. But the truth was like this: their father patted their mother's back and said, "Tired? Rest for a while, let me do it." Glutinous rice balls x sesame balls. Although they didn't quite understand the meaning of these words put together, they had a bad feeling about it. Their mother threw the ruler to their father and said, "Beat them to death. Bear puppy must be punished, these two bastards." These two bastards actually threw the deputy priest's godhead into the life chart. Their father's expression suddenly became serious and said, "The deputy priest's godhead was thrown into the life chart." "Yes." Their mother flew into a rage and said, "Did you know? Sesame Ball's physique. As long as he enters a state similar to absolute, he can break through all kinds of enchantments. This bastard didn't even say hello before tearing down the house. He even dared to play with the life chart and godhead." Yijiosa was about to go crazy. Because of the special nature of the life chart and godhead, they couldn't be placed in the backpack as inanimate objects for a long time. Most of the time, he would set up enchantments and place them in a secure secret room. Once the enchantment was broken, he would immediately notice it. But the bad thing was that his youngest son Sesame Ball was a troublemaker. As long as he had a firm belief in causing trouble, this belief would become a vow and help him break through all kinds of difficulties. He would even be directly accepted by the enchantment and become a part of the enchantment. In other words, if Sesame Ball was strong enough, no one could trap him in a domain. He could come and go freely anywhere. He was simply a husky that could tear down a house at any time. He only took the time to make milk powder and rice paste, and his youngest son had already sneaked into the enchantment. What was even worse was that his eldest son Glutinous Rice Balls didn't look for their parents immediately when his younger brother did something wrong. Instead, he helped his younger brother clean up the mess and cover up the truth. What deep brotherly love! Let's see if I don't beat them to death today. What will happen when the godhead is thrown into the life chart? I'm not sure. Yijiosa had a headache. We'll look for it by following the godhead's aura later. I hope it doesn't fall into the hands of someone with ulterior motives. The life plate chain was connected to all the planes, constantly revolving and shifting, changing the world. Finding a godhead was an extremely troublesome matter. If the godhead was perfectly preserved, it would be a great fortune. If it accidentally fell into the hands of a world-destroying villain, it would definitely be a disaster. I need to gather the Inuchi gang. We need to take action. Yijiosa hurriedly contacted his companions. Saishomaru threw away the ruler with a cold expression and pulled out his whip of light as his two sons trembled. Even if it was his own son, even if they were still young, it was not an excuse to be tolerant when they committed such a grave mistake. One of them casually entered the forbidden zone because of his uniqueness, and the other covered up his mistake because of his emotions. This was intolerable. Tolerance would be harming them. Remember this lesson. Saishomaru glared at them and beat them even more ruthlessly than Yijiosa. Noble bloodlines and noble identities are not the capital for you to act recklessly. It's okay to make mistakes, but not every mistake will be forgiven. The two puppies curled up together with tears in their eyes, pitiful, weak, and helpless. But at this moment, their parents were already busy like a spinning top. Have you confirmed the aura? As expected of Sapphirose and Yoshi Asakura. Yijiosa was extremely touched. Sapphirose and Yoshi Asakura were the ones with the most divinity among the puppies, and they were also extremely sensitive to the aura of a godhead. When the incident happened, he informed them, but he did not expect to lock the aura in such a short time. The sub-godhead falling into the life chart was a big deal. The news of the Inuchi gang was updated at lightning speed. All parties had already set off toward the locked plane. It's confirmed, it's a newborn plane. Uchiha Madara said, at the border of the fourth universe, a parallel plane similar to Earth, was derived. It originally had no consciousness or master, but it seemed to have suddenly awakened more than 10 years ago, and there were gods. The sub-godhead should have been integrated by someone, but I don't know. This is the godhead's own choice, or it was forced to integrate with someone. The life chart was constantly rotating, and the trajectories of each time and space were different. It had been 2 hours and 40 minutes since the incident happened on Yijiosa's end, but the godhead had disappeared for more than 10 years. Let's go. Yijiosa sighed. Although he was still angry, looking at the two puppies' terrified look, his heart softened a little. You two silly dogs, you really killed me. He ordered Xie Jian to send the two kids to stay with the Lingua King for a few days, and he and Saishomaru would set off immediately. If this godhead fell into the hands of the villain, and if the villain overdrafted his power to destroy the world, then all the sins would fall on the two children's heads. There was a cause and effect, and once stained, they could not get rid of it for the rest of their lives. But as parents, they had to think of their children. If they made a mistake, they had to deal with the aftermath. What a tough life. So why did he have to take things too hard and raise another husky? Another husky. Fuck, heart attack. Hello everyone, my name is Chi-Mu Nanxiong, an ordinary high school student at PK Academy. I have unlimited superpowers since birth, and I am also a coffee and jelly lover. I have superpowers such as teleportation, time reversal, X-ray vision, petrification, flying, and so on. I am the god of the new world, and the protector of Earth. In fact, as long as I want to, I can obtain endless wealth and treasures in minutes, and live as anyone wants to live. But I don't want to, outhand. JPG, if I take things too hard and think that the world has let me down, I can explode with power that can destroy the world, and destroy the world in 3 days, leaving no one alive. But I am very open-minded, outhand. JPG, because wealth, fame, and destruction are all easily obtainable, and there is no challenge. Moreover, my parents are good citizens with normal values, and my brother is a scientist who loves the world. I think about it carefully. Compared to destruction, it seems that protecting is more challenging. So I have a goal, and I have decided to become a god. I want to protect this world, and fight against the evil forces of other planets. In January 2012, a huge meteorite approached Earth. I sent it flying with a slap. Save Earth X1. In February 2012, a huge spaceship approached Earth, and tried to invade. I destroyed them without hesitation. Save Earth X2. In March 2012, the North American continent suffered from frequent earthquakes and tsunamis. In a rage, I went underground, and glued 2 tectonic plates together. Save Earth X3. In April 2012, a company in Europe developed the Enchanting virus, and it was about to be put into production. I killed, crippled, and scattered them in a few moves. Save Earth X4. I didn't understand why so many things happened in 2012, until I saw the Mayan prophecy. I sealed the curse of the Mayan prophecy. Save Earth X5. Life continued to pass peacefully, and after 2012, it was another long and peaceful period. I went to high school, and I had a retarded teammate who had a chin like my butt, a teenager who acted up every day, a delinquent who turned over a new leaf in high school, and a love-struck girl who was blessed by God, and I had to avoid her. I thought my life had become bad enough because of them, but I never thought that there was something even worse than them. Hello everyone, I'm Chi-Mu Nanxiong. Following a clap of thunder in the sky, a group of powerful aliens who could wipe out the entire Earth in a matter of minutes appeared in front of me in this rainy night. One with a long cape, one with rabbit eyes, one with golden sparkle, one with pretentious looks, this white-boned spirit, this fanged one, this 165, this is a human. That demon, that Jin Zhangji, that light bulb, that green ant. What the hell? I never thought that I would encounter the scariest challenge in my life. 1 against 12, can I do it? What kind of insane things are they going to do to a young man like me? It makes me feel uneasy. Following a flash of lightning, light shone on the ground. A beautiful woman blessed by God. Oh no, blessed by a dog walked out of this group of aliens. She looked at me for a long time, and then muttered to her teammates. After a while, she sent me a team invitation. Young man, do you want to conquer the Sea of Stars with us? Hello everyone, my name is Chimu Nanxiong. I'm really sorry, but because I have joined an organization to conquer the Sea of Stars, the broadcast of the third part of Chimu Nanxiong's calamity will have to be delayed. Sigh, it's really troublesome to become a hero who hides his achievements and fame. Yijiosa didn't expect that he would come to the newborn dimension in such a grand manner. Following the aura of the godhead, he wouldn't run into a deranged great demon king. Instead, he would run into a pink-haired young man with a clean aura and elegant temperament. He seemed to be aware of their arrival, and before he could confirm their motives, he took the initiative to appear and lock their attention on him. Also, he flipped his hands and used a large amount of strength to uproot the residential buildings in the area and move them to a safe place. Just like that, there was only a heavy downpour and a young man who was on guard. His eyes were clear and determined, as though he had made up his mind and didn't retreat at all. He watched them with vigilance, ready to defend against their attacks at any moment. His temperament and character really surprised me. Godhood, that was godhood. It was enough to turn a weak force into a giant, it was enough to turn a salted fish into a kunpeng, it was enough to turn a losing battle into a victory in an instant. It was enough to control the mountains and seas, order all humans, and control the entire earth. But the young man in front of him didn't do so. He only guarded this piece of pure land and did everything within his power to maintain its stability. Because in this world, there was someone he wanted to protect. Because he wanted to protect something, he had a bottom line. Only by having a bottom line could one learn to be truly kind. Yijiosa was still worried about the ownership of the last godhood, but he did not expect the qualified person to be sent to him. Nanxiong Chimu. Yijiosa remembered this name, as well as his 12th adjutant. However, he understood the logic, but here came the problem. Nanxiong Chimu, what is your relationship with Akagi Seijiro? Why do you look so similar to him? Sapphiro's eyes became strange. Sapphiros sent a team invitation to Nanxiong Chimu. Hello, may I ask? Do you know Akagi Seijiro? Nanxiong Chimu rejected Sapphiro's team invitation. I'm sorry, I don't know him. He is my younger brother, you look very similar to him. Sapphiros revealed a loving look. I'll introduce you two next time. Nanxiong Chimu could sense Sapphiro's kindness, so he didn't refuse. All right. He also wanted to know, how similar could Akagi Seijiro be to him? Curiosity can kill the cat. For Nanxiong Chimu, joining an organization was not a big deal. As long as it was not a fight, he could accept it. After all, if a fight broke out, only this place would be destroyed. He would not allow that to happen. He would not allow that to happen. Therefore, regardless of whether he was pretending to be polite or sincere, joining an organization had become a compromise. There was no reason to refuse. But fortunately, he was much more relaxed with this group of companions who also stood on the same level as him. This made him realize that he was finally not alone. There were many people who were exactly the same as him. They watched movies together, played games together, read books together, and even quarreled loudly. They didn't have to worry about accidentally destroying anything, and they could even use their power without restraint in a large space. Nanxiong Chimu lived happily until he was brought by Sapphiros to see Akagi Seijiro. Akaji Shijiro. Nanshyong Chi-mu. They stared at each other, sparks and lightning flashing in their eyes. Fuck. Dad had an affair in another world. Glutinous rice ball and sesame ball became a lot more obedient after the beating, but it was still troublesome. But as time passed, these two children began to understand things, and their personalities became more and more prominent. Glutinous rice ball was steady and reliable, and had outstanding talent. Sesame ball was born off the rails, and was a troublemaker. Glutinous rice ball's intelligence was off the charts, and he could infer many things from one instance. Sesame ball hated studying, and he failed every subject. Glutinous rice ball grew up quickly, and he defeated the kindergarten. Sesame ball was cute and silly, and he had terrible control. Yijiosa brought them up until they were 3 years old, and Saishomaru brought them to travel between planes, and they were thrown into a relatively dangerous supernatural world. After that, it was reading, growing up, traveling, and training. As time slowly passed, the two children finally had the ability to protect themselves. At that time, they were only 6 years old. Saishomaru was a strict father through and through, and since the two children had the ability to protect themselves, he didn't need to be distracted anymore. He activated Wanxiang and sent them to the side of his idle companions. Since they could protect themselves, they could go all out and beat them up. The strong were born under the rod, and without pressure, it would be a waste of their bloodline. Although the nickname of his two sons was Food, he didn't want them to become food for others. Chapter 298. Ever since the arrival of Chi-mu Nanshyong from the Iniku group, the peaceful days were gone forever. There was no other way. A cute and cold white cat suddenly mixed into a litter of dogs. Not only could this cat complain to people, it could also transform into a cute girl. Not only was it loved by the king of 10,000 dogs, Yijiosa, it was also on good terms with the human death, Shinichi Kudo. These two sides were big shots that could not be said under the protection of the big shots. Even a noob could do whatever he wanted. However, as the god of the new world, his bone age was only 16 years old. Compared to Yijiosa, who had reincarnated twice. The middle-aged Jin. The black-hearted Koluo. The Uchiha Madara who was running towards the setting sun. The unscientific Shinichi Kudo, Saishomaru, Aizen, and the others who had lived longer than a tortoise. Chi-mu Nanshyong could be said to be tender. This tender. Not only because of his handsome face, but also because of his control over his superpowers. He was young, inexperienced, and his lack of skills would always cause him to lose control of one kind or another. For example, today. When Chi-mu Nanshyong woke up, he found that half of the earth had been blown up by him. Chi-mu Nanshyong. Fortunately, he was the god of the new world. There was no problem with resetting the time back to a day ago. However, this matter left a shadow in his heart, so he left Earth for the time being, prepared to stay with his colleagues for a few days. However, Chi-mu Nanshyong never expected that his disaster was not over, but had just begun first. He came to the west. The king of 10,000 dogs had a good saying: if you have difficulties, find an organization. Although the organization is full of dogs, they will not exclude cats. At most, they will circle him up and stroke him a few times. At first, Chi-mu Nanshyong did not understand what, at most, they will circle him up and stroke him a few times, meant until he entered the West in a daze and found the leader of the organization, Yijiosa. Superpowers out of control. Yijiosa put down her hands that were stroking the puppies. The two puppies barked and turned over, climbing up her head from her chest. To put it bluntly, you're young and energetic. When you're angry, of course you'll lose control. So, do you usually stroke? Nanao-chi, how can you ask a man such a question so frankly? That's strange. You didn't move your mouth, but why can I hear you so clearly? Non-Xiong-Chi, because I'm using my superpower to communicate directly with your brain. Oh, I see. So do you usually masturbate? Non-Xiong-Chi. What does this have to do with me losing control of my superpower? Of course it's related. Losing control of a superpower is like overflowing water. If you can't control it, you have to find an outlet for it. Yi Jose said earnestly, then, here comes the question. What kind of exit is safe and efficient without threatening other people's safety? That's watching a pornographic film to relieve yourself. You'll feel satisfied, and you'll also vent your excess energy. You'll find that the sky is blue, the water is green, and even the birds are singing happily. Glutinous rice ball x sesame ball happily barked. Birds, birds, birds. Chirp chirp. Non-Xiong-Chi. I fell from a hero saving the world to a youth sex education lecture, and the content of the lecture was mainly about maternal and infant education. So, young man, in order to save the world, watch a good pornographic film. Non-Xiong-Chi, goodbye. After that, Non-Xiong-Chi broke through the space barrier again to look for Shinichi Kudo, who didn't have much of a generation gap with him. After all, Shinichi Kudo was also an ordinary person before he fused with his godhood. He also heard that Kudo had been admitted to Tokyo University and became the most famous detective. During his time as a god, he had never lost control of his superpower. Such a successful case could be used as a reference. Sure enough, he shouldn't have looked for Yi Jose. As an innocent boy, he was no match for the veteran Yi Jose. He went in with a pale face and came out with a red face. Seiki Nanao found Shinichi Kudo, and the two of them sat down in a cafe and chatted happily. They had the same worldview and IQ, the same experience and distress, the same sense of responsibility and endurance. They simply regretted not meeting each other earlier. However, the peaceful conversation did not last long before a hysterical scream came from the backstage of the coffee shop. Dash. Shinichi Kudo was adept at his job and rose to the top. In a matter of minutes, he strode towards the back with Chi-Mu Nanxiong following closely behind, only to see a woman lying in a pool of blood, her body covered with glass shards. It was said that he was accidentally stabbed to death after the glass shattered. His luck was truly terrible. But Shinichi Kudo and Seiki Nanao knew at a glance that it was a murder. With the saxophone BGM and the oath of "there is only one truth," they succeeded in clearing the victim's name and arresting the criminal. Shinichi Kudo's awesomeness was once again widely reported by many parties. Chi-Mu Nanxiong felt that Shinichi Kudo was indeed worthy of being the senior he had chosen. He was indeed much more reliable than Yi Jose. The two of them walked together all the way west. Then, Chi-Mu Nanxiong discovered that everywhere Shinichi Kudo went, drunk driving and hitting people, serial car accidents, falling objects, bank robberies, street attacks. Every time, Shinichi Kudo would quickly rise to the ground. He would rush to the scene every second to clear the name of the victim. Chi-Mu Nanxiong. The most serious time was when the two of them went to the amusement park, where a huge Ferris wheel went out of control and was flung away. If Chi-Mu Nanxiong had not been there, there would have been countless casualties. Chi-Mu Nanxiong couldn't help but say, "Your world is very dangerous." Shinichi Kudo scratched his head. "I'm used to it." Chi-Mu Nanxiong. "How can you even get used to this?" Shinichi Kudo, "I have no choice but to get used to it. Speaking of which, I really can't help you with the loss of control of your superpower because I've never had this kind of trouble before. I've never lost control of my superpower. Oh, help." Shinichi Kudo rose to the ground and ran like a madman. "So, I really can't help you with anything. I'm sorry, please excuse me for a moment." Chi-mu nan xiong. He suddenly understood. It wasn't that Shinichi Kudo never lost control of his superpower, it was that he had never lost control of it. Wherever he went, there would be a large number of people dying. Moreover, Shinichi Kudo's Grim Reaper aura could be stacked with the aura of his colleagues, giving him a helpful buff. It was truly a weapon of mass destruction. No wonder they could defeat God. Chi-mu nan xiong felt that he had understood something. Yijiosa was unreliable, but Shinichi Kudo was even more unreliable than Yijiosa. Chi-mu nan xiong pushed up his glasses and thought about it carefully. He decided to look for the experienced and prudent Uchiha Madara. However, Chi-mu nan xiong didn't expect that when he followed Uchiha Madara's location, he would end up in a paddy field. When he looked up, he saw Uchiha Madara wearing a straw hat with his trousers rolled up. He was working together with another long-haired man. They seemed to be cooperating very well. Yo, Chi-mu nan xiong. Uchiha Madara noticed him and patted Senju Takuma's shoulder. Put down your rice seedlings. Let me introduce you to this child. Here, this is Chi-mu nan xiong. Ah, this is Senju Takuma. Chi-mu nan xiong bowed. Hello, Senju senpai, my name is Chi-mu nan xiong, nice to meet you for the first time. Senju Takuma has been farming in Huaxia since he regained his body. This has been for several years. He didn't expect to see Uchiha Madara again, and even see his colleagues and descendants. When he thought that Madara found his own peace in life, and finally let go of the past and grievances, Senju Takuma was sincerely gratified and moved. Senju Takuma smiled heartily and greeted Chi-mu nan xiong enthusiastically. The three finally sat in a shed next to the farmland, drinking barley tea and eating pancakes. Oh, you lost control of your superpower. Uchiha Madara nodded and expressed his understanding. Indeed, I didn't adapt to it when I first awakened the eternal kaleidoscope. It was not until I fought with Hashirama that I stabilized. Yes, after the awakening of wood release, I couldn't even sleep peacefully. Sometimes when I wake up early in the morning, I find that the pumpkins in the field are bigger than the room, ha ha ha. Senju Takuma didn't care about his dark history and continued to expose. What if the pumpkin is too big? Hashirama said he would deal with it. I finally learned that he sold the pumpkin to someone. Coincidentally, the other party was Uchiha Anna Izumi, and I was cheated of a lot of money. Chi-mu nan xiong. If I heard it right, Senju-senpai, the surname next to you is Uchiha, right? Senju Takuma laughed. Yes, Madara's surname is also Uchiha, and he is also the brother of Anna Izumi. Then he was beaten Chi-mu nan xiong. Wild Horse finally returned to the topic. Senju Takuma said with a swollen face, Madara is right. The reason why strong people lose control of their abilities is because of the lack of practice and control. If there is a chance to practice, this situation will not happen again. Chi-mu nan xiong, practice refers to. Of course, it's to fight, ha ha ha. Senju Takuma laughed. Young man, young people should find an apocalypse to fight a few more times, and they will become proficient. Chi-mu nan xiong, no, I still. Senju Takuma, it happens that Madara and I are here, and we can practice together. We haven't fought for a long time, and our bones are a little moldy. There's no time like the present, and there's no time like the present. Fate brings us together from thousands of miles away. Didn't you come looking for us just to fight? Chi-mu nan xiong, I'm not, don't talk nonsense. Uchiha Madara, yes, Chi-mu nan xiong, you should practice more at a young age. Hashirama and I were already veterans of the battlefield at your age, and our abilities have never been out of control again. Chi-mu nan xiong, sorry, I remembered that I still have. Senju Takuma and Uchiha Madara made their moves together, and they pressed Chimu Nanxiong's soft and tender shoulders, showing a kind smile. "Come on, let's find a good place to fight together." Chimu Nanxiong. 5 hours later, Chimu Nanxiong, who was beaten by Uchiha and Senju, was sitting in the Sahara Desert, looking up at the starry sky. His face was numb. In a trance, Chimu Nanxiong understood that the rest of his colleagues did not need to spend time looking for them. In fact, Yijiosa's advice was the most reliable. Thus, Chimu Nanxiong returned to his own dimension and went into his room. With a serious expression, he took out his computer and logged onto the midnight pay-per-view channel. Just as he was about to embark on a shameful activity that would make anyone bald, he suddenly sensed -800 meters to the west, Rantang Force was approaching. 900 meters to the east, Shomashi Hashimi was approaching. 1,000 meters to the north, Hating Shunshu was approaching. The door that was right in front of them was opened by Papa and Mama. Ah! Nanxiong. Ah! Their dear son was sitting in front of the computer, opened a channel that they were very familiar with, and there was a box of tissues on the table. Chimu Nanxiong. Chimu Nanxiong. Reset time. Ah, today's Chimu Nanxiong is still living in the disaster. At the same time, Yijiosa leaned on Saishomaru's arms and asked, "By the way, what should I do if I lose control of my ability? How can I control it?" Saishomaru kissed her forehead and said, "Hold a bowl full of water, keep your balance, and keep walking until there is not a drop of water spilling out of the bowl. With this method, you can precisely control your own strength. You can also control your strength to the smallest detail, and you can better control the amount of strength." "Why? Do you want to give glutinous rice balls and sesame balls training?" Yijiosa curled his lips. "No, give them a bowl of water, they can use themselves as a cloth to wash the dishes." Saishomaru suddenly became silent. After glutinous rice balls and sesame balls were 6 years old, they were transferred to the Inaguchi group to train with their uncles. After training for about 3 years, glutinous rice balls received unanimous praise, while sesame balls received negative reviews. All the dogs who had raised sesame balls said in unison, "If you want to live too long, then raise sesame balls." After separating at the age of 9, the two children finally met again. After all, they were twins from the same mother. Not only were they not estranged, but they also had a tacit understanding. Glutinous rice balls absorbed the essence of both his parents. The 9-year-old baby's looks were off the charts, and he had a calm temperament. One look and you could tell that he was someone who could do great things. Sesame balls looked like his mother, and was as delicate as a crystal doll. No one could guess that he was a transformer. At that time, glutinous rice balls and sesame balls held hands and decided to explore other worlds. They hadn't been together for a long time. It was time to escape the oppression of their feudal parents and run into a new life. Sesame balls, "Brother, where are we going?" Glutinous rice balls, "Where do you want to go?" "I'll accompany you." Sesame balls, "I heard that there is a world called Elfpet. There are many interesting animals that can be tamed. Megalodon, prehistoric crocodile, alien, predator, python. Let's go there." Glutinous rice balls, "Yes, do you know where the entrance to time and space is?" Sesame balls, "I know, it's at the bottom of Sister Sadako's well." Glutinous rice balls, "Who is Sister Sadako?" Sesame balls, "She's also a elf pet. I've already tamed her. Brother, she's very powerful. She climbed out of the TV and dragged me to her house to play. But I accidentally destroyed her house. In the end, I had no choice but to drag her out of the well and put her in the toilet bowl in my room. I treated her very well. She was so dirty, but I still poured toilet water for her every day. I used the toilet bowl to scrub it clean, then rinsed it with water. She was so touched that she cried. She didn't want to trouble me anymore, so she wanted to leave. But she can't. Her house is ugly and smelly. Staying in the well is worse than staying in the toilet bowl. Brother, Sister Sadako is actually very beautiful. Mother said that a daughter-in-law should be raised from a young age. I can already feel it from Sister Sadako, mother is right. Glutinous rice balls. He suddenly understood why his uncles always said that sesame balls look like his mother. The two cute little meatballs crawled into the bottom of Sadako's well, and opened a crack that led to another elf pet world. When the light reappeared, the transparent figures around them gradually filled up, and there was the smell of people coming and going. Slowly, the scenery around them materialized into countless tall, blonde, blue-eyed Europeans. The two short meatballs squeezed into the crowd, listening to a series of bird language, looking up at the huge sign. Oh, I can't understand it. Fortunately, as a demon, and a rather divine demon at that, it wasn't difficult to master a foreign language. This is the Jurassic world. Glutinous rice balls murmured. Then, together with his little brother, they were squeezed into the huge park by the surging crowd. Brother, I smell it, there's the smell of food. Sesame balls drooled. There. There's a lot of meat, it's alive, and it smells really good. Glutinous rice balls whispered, I'll take you to eat it when night falls. And so, after one night, in the nest of mutated dinosaurs that should have escaped and caused countless deaths and major tragedies, only a perfect skeleton and dog teeth marks were left on the skeleton. Glutinous rice balls x sesame balls, burp, delicious. A month later, in the Inagami group chat group, glutinous rice balls and sesame balls sent many travel photos. The first photo was of the empty Jurassic world, along with sesame balls' disappointed face, and glutinous rice balls' helpless explanation. We ate all the dinosaurs, little brother is very sad, he didn't eat his fill today. The second photo was taken on a desolate planet. The two brothers were riding on a huge black, iron-colored xenomorph. They took a group photo and said, we have a new mount. It's called xenomorph, but it's too sour and not very tasty. The third photo was in the depths of the Amazon forest. Glutinous rice balls sat on a ball of dead pythons, sesame balls made a V with his hand, and also took a photo of the primitive style of roasted snake meat. The snakes raised by blood orchids are too tasty. It's just that the quantity is a little small, only 30 or so, big brother and I can finish them in 3 days. The fourth photo was in the disaster-ridden New York City. Sesame balls was holding Thanos' glove in his mouth. The background was New York that was blown up, and a group of heroes that saved the world were shouting, fuck, and oh my god. Glutinous rice balls calmly explained, sorry, I didn't look after little brother. New York and Thanos were both destroyed by him. The fifth photo was in the Predator planet, where martial arts were respected. The two meatballs started to fight and destroy, and in the end, while a group of Predator warriors were jumping around, they rolled around in space. Glutinous rice balls and sesame balls pressed down on the Predator Lone Wolf's head, and made a V gesture. Only with Lone Wolf as a foil did we realize how cute we are. Saishomaru and Yijosa. They put down their phones, stretched their bodies, and looked at the fate line that had been changed so badly by the two brats that they couldn't bear to look at it. Fortunately, although the main plot was crooked, the direction of development was still bright. Then, one of them picked up a whip, and the other picked up a board, and aggressively went to catch the brats. At the same time, sesame balls, bro, I have a bad feeling, let's go to another world. Glutinous rice balls, where to? Sesame balls, I heard that there's a place that's a man's paradise, called. What's it called? Glutinous rice balls, what's that world like? Sesame balls, I heard that there's a sport that men really like. Is it chicken dinner? Glutinous rice balls. What's chicken dinner? Forget it, let's go take a look. Half a month later, the two meatballs ran back to the west while being chased by all the bitches in the city, willingly getting beaten. Oh my god. Compared to the bitches, the mother's board is still gentler. Sob, sob, sob. Sesame Balls was moved to tears by the board and the whip. Kimoji. Glutinous rice balls. I'd better blacklist Sesame Balls. After the two sons were locked up, and after Saishomaru finished his official business, Yijiosa decided to search for the reincarnation of Lord God. Because time and space were distorted, they couldn't be sure which time period they would land in when Lord God reincarnated. But no matter what, Yijiosa hoped that he could provide some help to Lord God, just like how Lord God had helped him in the past. When the life wheel began to rotate, when the gears kept changing, when the parallel star orbits suddenly intersected, when the predetermined fate changed. A bright light flashed, and Yijiosa slowly landed on the ground, riding the breeze. In his hands, he held a soft white firewood. Modern buildings, high-rise domes, the Milky Way and the starry sky were set off by the light of neon lights. This familiar style and prosperity was the Tokyo that they had landed in countless times. Yijiosa smiled and rubbed white firewood's head, feeling that everything was full of nostalgia. He looked for a trace of a familiar aura and slowly moved forward, but found that the further he went, the darker it became. After a while, he suddenly saw light. He was at a construction site. Then, huge reinforced concrete fell on his head. He heard screams and smelled blood, but he still couldn't move forward. This pair of legs, the will of the world was stopping him. This meant that this was a fixed factor, something that couldn't be changed. But, Lord God. Yijiosa narrowed his eyes and touched his chin. No matter what, he would become the golden finger of the Lord God's reincarnation. A few days later, in a large hospital in Tokyo, the human had been converted from a human to a semi-human. Brother Mu Wu sniped Xiatanhe. Barking. Dizziness. Imperial Province's head was filled with the buzzing sound of electricity, and there was an indescribable, uncomfortable feeling. Ding, hello. Jinjung System number 001 Little Sparrow at your service. Kaneki Ken. What the hell? Little did he know that in the sky, the new Lord God, Yijiosa, was holding a dog and scooping watermelon spoon by spoon, smiling at the lucky one who was chosen by God. Be good, don't be afraid, Kaneki-kun, I will immediately make you a winner in life. Your previous life may have been very unlucky, but as long as you persevere, you will naturally see the sun. Life will come to an end, but the journey of life will never end. I will accompany you as you accompanied me as I grew up. The world is a reincarnation, and so is life. Please take care of me in the future, Kaneki-kun. Then the question is, what should I assign to my first mission? Why don't you raise a husky first, Kaneki-kun? After all, only after experiencing true suffering can you become a self-reliant man. Chapter 299. Times have changed, 10 years have passed in a hurry. The prosperity of Fuyuki City did not change, and the old people of the past did not change. The Battle of the Holy Grail 10 years ago, the flames of war 10 years later. 10 years ago, it was a battle for the glory of mages, but 10 years later, it was to recover everything that had been lost. The younger generation of mages had grown up and possessed abilities and skills that were not inferior to those of the previous generation. They explored the mysterious history of 10 years ago with the purpose of seeking the truth, but those who knew were all secretive. They did not know which part of the process went wrong. It actually made this group of young boys and girls mistakenly think that only by competing for the strongest would they be able to find the final truth. Thus, as they fought, it just so happened that it affected Sadako's well of curses. Then, they dug out 3 slovenly otaku uncles from the bottom of the well, as well as a rotten and smelly woman's corpse. Everyone. Ha! Then the problem came. 3 adult men stayed at the bottom of the well for 10 years. What exactly did they do to this corpse? They didn't throw it out of the well even though it was rotten to this extent. Could it be that they had some unspeakable hobbies? But when the younger generation and the older generation met by chance, when that similar appearance overlapped with the scene in their memories, the younger generation suddenly suffered a violent blow. They did not expect that this group of wretched and sloppy uncles was actually the father that they had worked so hard to find for 10 years. No. Such a decadent and wretched otaku is definitely not my father. However, it was useless to try their luck. After the shackles of the Well of Curses were lifted, the men who had been imprisoned at the bottom of the well for 10 years had long ago worn away their burning ambitions by playing cards and fighting the landlord day after day. At the moment they saw the light again, they were moved to hug their children. They shed tears full of rancid smell. Child, to be able to see you is really great. The children were in great grief. They were hit by the strange smell that filled their nostrils. They fainted in their biological father's arms. The fathers revealed gratified smiles. Although 10 years had passed, the father-daughter relationship was still there. They did not expect that after seeing their father, they would actually faint in happiness. Don't worry, child, Daddy won't do anything shameful anymore. Daddy wants to accompany you as you grow up and watch you get married. What Holy Grail war? What family glory? After 10 years in the Well Detention Center, they had already thought it through. In order to prevent them from going to jail again, the Holy Grail war, which was a waste of manpower and money, should be completely cancelled. Wouldn't it be better to just hold a Fuyuki City Decennial Beauty Contest instead? What was the point of letting a group of children fight and kill? This was simply insane. 10 years ago, the Holy Grail War had mysteriously ended because of a bunch of dogs. 10 years later, the Holy Grail War had mysteriously ended because of a bunch of big shots who had been released from prison. When Uchiha Madara and Gilgamesh came back with the mentality of taking a look, Yen Feng Chili had been transferred from the Dark Godfather to the Dean of the Old Folks' Home. He had made the business of providing for the elderly very prosperous. He had also played a few rounds of mahjong in a trance and turned into a famous god of gamblers. Gilgamesh. In a certain sense, Yen Feng Chili had indeed become a god. It could be considered as fulfilling his long-cherished wish. Right? Tashiko was deeply remorseful. Regardless of whether his youngest daughter would forgive him, he would use everything he had to make up for the destruction of her life. Gilgamesh, it's indeed all Tashiko's fault. Amiya Kisi had gained many insights and chose to retire after being released from prison. But after being an assassin for more than 20 years, the habit of holding a gun had seeped into his soul. It wasn't something that could be erased in 10 years. He joined the shooting club and slowly became a gold medal instructor. Gilgamesh, I understand the logic. So what exactly did you experience in the past 10 years to change so much? With this question in mind, Gilgamesh went to Yen Feng Chili. Who knew that the ghost animal godfather would give her an extremely righteous answer? Hero King, even you have changed a lot. Why do you think we will remain the same? Gilgamesh, after being a dog for 10 years, I had no choice. Yen Feng Chili, after sitting at the bottom of a well for 10 years, everything has come to an end. The two of them looked at each other and understood everything without saying a word. It turned out that 10 years ago, after meeting a puppy, their lives had long been arranged clearly. Gilgamesh walked out of the nursing home. Facing the sunset, he transformed into a handsome blonde youth and moved forward with the crowd. With his feet on the ground, he seriously sized up humans and the world for the first time. The big screens on both sides of the street were playing an interview about the most handsome man in the island, Dillamuddin. The billboard beside the subway station was very eye-catching with Iskandar's fitness photos. The stock market expert, Lancelot, appeared in the headlines of the Japanese economic newspaper. It was said that he wanted to buy the land of Great Britain as a gift to his queen. The Japanese women all said that this was the most romantic marriage proposal of the year. No one knew that the Night King would pick up his sword and press Lancelot into the ground. What the fuck is a marriage proposal? The Night King doesn't need a man. He only needs a Shiro, human wife, who knows how to cook. Gilgamesh did not know where to go. After 10 years, he was already incompatible with the old world. But following the sense of familiarity in his soul, he wanted to go where his best friend was. In the most famous pet hospital in Fuyuki City, Enki, with long light green hair, wore a white coat and was affectionately playing with a golden retriever. He scratched the golden retriever's stomach and back and laughed out loud in the dog's closeness. "Gil, come out if you're here." Enki laughed. "Look at how cute this little guy is. He looks so much like you when you turn into a dog." Gilgamesh. "Can you not mention the days when I was a dog? Best friend. Long time no see, why did you suddenly come to me? But, as expected of a king, have you become a real god?" Enki's eyes curved. "Although I'm very happy with the king's growth, it's still cuter and more harmless to turn into a dog." Gilgamesh. "We're still best friends if you don't mention the golden retriever. Gil, where's master?" Enki asked. "Did he come to see us?" Gilgamesh, TSK, the owner is pregnant. She's giving birth in Shigoin. Her husband is Saishomaru, Gilgamesh explained. He's a white puppy that she's always holding. Enki's eyes became subtle. "So, the reason why you came to see me, your poor best friend, is because the owner was taken away, and no one is raising you anymore." Gilgamesh. "I think our friendship has come to an end." After 10 years, even Enki, his best friend, became speechless. Sure enough, time is like a razor, and a few cuts can make a dog go bald. On the other side, Uchiha Madara met with Dillamuddin and got his identification, passport, and some money. After learning that Senju Takuma was farming in Huaxia, he had a rare mischievous thought and wanted to laugh at his former best friend. As the leader of the Senju family, how could he use the wood escape technique to farm? How shameful. At first, Uchiha Madara wanted to fly to Huaxia in a Gundam. There was a sea on both sides, and there was no place that Susanoo couldn't fly over. However, Huaxia was a magical place. As long as one stepped into the airspace and territory of this area, he would be warned by the rules of this area. After the founding of the country, no one is allowed to become a spirit. Obviously, the rules of Huaxia felt that Uchiha Madara had become a spirit, and the kind that could fly. Uchiha Madara. There was no other way. He couldn't fight back, so he had to make do with taking a plane. Uchiha Madara got on the plane in a suit and leather shoes, and then got off the plane in a suit and leather shoes. As soon as he landed, he arrived at the airport of Shanghai in Huaxia. As soon as he stepped out of the door, he was overwhelmed by the crowd. He wanted to take the subway that went from left to right, but he didn't expect the subway that went from right to left to arrive first. The heavy suitcase was caught in the dense crowd, and as soon as the crowd moved, the suitcase was dragged away. He, the leader of the Uchiha family and the most savage demon on the battlefield, was dragged into the subway by the suitcase and taken to an unknown direction. After getting off the station, Uchiha Madara was so angry that he picked up the suitcase. With a kick, he jumped onto the building and was ready to leap away from the building. Then, the city management team whistled and yelled at him to stop. He received a warning from the rules of Huaxia, which stated that after the founding of the country, no one is allowed to fly over roofs and vault over walls. He also received a penalty of 500 yuan for stepping on buildings in public. Uchiha Madara. The battlefield demon had never been wronged like this before, but it was precisely because of this that his long-lost competitiveness was stimulated. Even that idiot Senju Takuma could survive in this land of, know this, know that, why couldn't he? Was he worse than Senju Takuma? Impossible. Wasn't he just looking for a Senju Takuma? He was looking for Senju Takuma. As long as he knew the general direction, he would be able to find him in the shortest time possible. Unfortunately, Uchiha Madara never expected that Hua was a vast country with abundant resources. Even if he knew that Senju Takuma was growing sorghum in the northeast, he still had to pass through various towns and provinces and cross thousands of mountains and rivers from Shanghai to the northeast. Moreover, the terrain of Hua was extremely complicated, and the dialects of the densely populated areas were different. It was difficult to ask for directions. Therefore, after half a month, poor Uchiha Madara still hadn't gotten out of Jiangsu. By the time he remembered that he could still take a plane, another week had passed. Uchiha Madara pretended to get on the plane, but by the time he found Senju Takuma, he had already become a travel-worn village killer. So the question is, why did he have to go to great lengths to find Senju Takuma, this fool? Is it just to make things difficult for himself? Senju Takuma lived a good life. He heard that his farming skills were so good that he had set up his own food company within 10 years and became a self-made planting tycoon. Probably because his Chinese was not very good, Senju Takuma pronounced Hashirama as Zhujian when he first came here, so he was regarded as a Japanese Chinese child, and even registered as Zhujian. 10 years ago, Zhujian was just a farmer. 10 years later, Zhu Jian became a grain tycoon. Senju Takuma has been used to his new identity, but he didn't expect to see his best friend again in his lifetime, Uchiha Madara. He was very moved. Uchiha Madara rarely moved. When the past grievances settled, he saw his best friend again. Although he was a little depressed, he was more pleased. Hashirama. Madara. Senju Takuma hugged Uchiha Madara, and his eyes were full of tears. What are you doing? What's the matter? You look like a bird. You're so filthy, have you ever eaten? Senju Takuma stayed in Hua for too long, and he had contact with many farmers in various places, so he learned a lot of Mandarin mixed with dialects. Over time, he was emotional, and it was inevitable that he would bring out some strange words. Uchiha Madara. Sure enough, it's better to beat him up to get the feeling. Akashi Sejiro had never thought that one day, God would give him such a huge surprise. He had never expected that the precious thing that he had lost in his life would return to him one day. He will always remember this day, when he and his father ate quietly together, tasting the delicious foie gras and the sweetness of red wine. It was rare to enjoy a period of peaceful time between father and son. Unexpectedly, there was a gap on the ceiling of the room. The gap was as dark as ink, like the big mouth of a giant beast. A pair of big hands opened it and tore it, causing the panic of the housekeeper and the scream of the maid. Then, a tall man with long hair as white as snow leaped down. He opened his palm and caught the bullet that came from the left. This kind of inhuman speed and iron skin made Takashi Akashi's family feel an unprecedented threat. Takashi Akashi put his son behind him and said coldly, "Who are you?" "Sephiroth." The man opened his mouth gently, shook the ammunition in his hand, and then lightly untied the long sword at his waist and threw it on the ground to show that he was harmless. "I mean no harm." Sephiroth's eyes were gentle, looking at Takashi Akashi and his son with kindness. "I just sent someone back." "Sent someone back? Who?" There was only one person, who suddenly appeared from nowhere, with extraordinary skills and strength, but suddenly told them that he had no purpose, and was just sending someone back. It was extremely suspicious. Moreover, who else could come back from Takashi Akashi's family? Who? But Takashi Akashi and his son did not expect that the miracle was like a flower that suddenly bloomed in life, appearing in front of them just like that. If they did not see it with their own eyes, who would know that all of this was real? Sapphiros opened his hand slightly, and closed his eyes with a gentle expression. Mother. Takashi Akashi's Shirji was the only mother he acknowledged. It was she who taught him what motherly love and tolerance was, it was she who saved him from the darkness and whirlpool of human nature, it was she who told him that there was hope and light in front of him. Mother. Akaji Seijiro murmured, his heart seemed to sense something, beating intensely. Takashi Akashi's hands were trembling, he looked at the spots of light that appeared in Sapphiros' hands, watching as the light gradually condensed into an illusory, extremely familiar figure. Shirji. Even if it was only a back view, it was a desire that repeatedly appeared in his dreams countless times, but he could not grasp it. Countless times he looked forward to going back in time, countless times he dreamed of her smiling face, he did not expect that there would be such a day. Sapphiros smiled, and the light in his arms became brighter and more solid. The bright light was like dancing feathers, gathering in the hall, circling, falling from his head, and rising again from his feet. A pair of gigantic wings suddenly spread out from his back, white as snow, as if he was an angel that had fallen to the mortal world. A one-winged demon, a two-winged angel, good and evil were only a single thought away, but salvation was a world apart. But when he truly crossed over the world, he discovered that the so-called darkness was already so far away from him. Mother. Sapphiros opened his eyes, pure joy flowing through his eyes. Takashi Akashi's Shirji still looked like she was in her 20s, from her rebirth to her death, from her rebirth to their reunion. When she opened her eyes, her face was covered in tears. Sapphiros. She couldn't stop her tears. Thank you. Sapphiros smiled, as a mother, you don't need to thank your child. You just need to hug the one you love, that's all. Mother Akaji Seijiro lost his composure for the first time, and suddenly rushed over to hug her. Takashi Akashi was unable to contain his excitement, and he tightly hugged both mother and son. Akaji. I'm sorry. I'm the one who should say sorry. I'm sorry. All the housekeepers and maids in the living room lowered their heads. Even though their eyes were filled with shock and their hearts were in turmoil, they still suppressed their fear with their strong willpower and stopped themselves from running away. Ever since Takashi Akashi's mansion experienced the 8 blades and 1 flash incident, Takashi Akashi had replaced all the housekeepers and maids with trusted aides. Although this incident couldn't be explained with science, and could even be described as a miracle, it was completely possible to make the employees keep the secret. When Takashi Akashi's family had cried enough, they finally remembered Sapphiros, who was silently standing at the side. Takashi Akashi's Shirji explained in a low voice, finally clearing the path for Sapphiros, the adopted son in the other world was also her child. Even the dead could be resurrected, so it wasn't difficult to understand the existence of the other world. However, the feeling of having an older brother out of nowhere made Akaji Seijiro feel a little awkward. But who was Sapphiros? He was the strongest special forces soldier in the history of Shinluo Company, the man who had become the faith of the entire planet, and the object of worship and respect for all men. As long as one was a man, there was no one who didn't admire the strong. Sapphiros was strong, reliable, gentle, and polite. He had all the qualities that a qualified older brother needed. When he showed closeness to someone, even Akaji Seijiro felt a little flattered. Sapphiros lived like every man's dream, his closeness meant recognition. Who could reject him? Seijiro. Sapphiros took advantage of his height and raised his hand with a smile, giving Akaji Seijiro a solid pat on the head. Long time no see. You've seen me before. Sapphiros sighed softly. What a sensitive child. Ah, do you remember the puppy that you adopted? That's me. Akagi Seijiro was speechless. He carefully recalled the pitiful Chinese rural dog and compared it to Sapphiro's tall, matey, and handsome image. So, was this the contrast cuteness that Ryota Huang often mentioned? Why did it feel like something was wrong? However, Akagi Seijiro didn't dwell on the contrast cuteness for too long. Ever since his mother returned, he had been immersed in training. And the reason for all this was because his older brother, Sapphiro's, thought he was too weak. Weak? Akagi Seijiro had never been so insulted. He was also a sports athlete since he was a child. He was the king of the court with 8 abdominal muscles. When he was an adult, he even overcame his height. He also learned taekwondo, judo, karate, and kendo. He could even beat a coach. How could he be considered weak? However, his older brother used his overwhelming strength to tell him, "You're really trash. Seijiro, you're too weak. You can't even catch a bullet. How are you going to protect yourself?" Akagi Seijiro. No human would face a bullet head-on, okay? Seijiro, you're too weak. You can't attack me if I hold your head up. How are you going to protect yourself? Akagi Seijiro. Your sword is 4 meters long. How am I going to hit you if you hold it against my head? Seijiro, you're too weak. You're slower than a stray cat. How are you going to protect yourself if you're being chased? Akagi Seijiro. My brother, you're touching a lion on the African savanna, not a stray cat. Sapphiros carelessly rubbed the lion's chin. Be good, I won't eat you. The lion was rolling around and meowing. Wasn't that a stray cat? Akagi Seijiro. Despair. JPG, the heir of the Takashi Akashi conglomerate was still living in misery today. And King Meluhime thought that Uchiha Madara would be a reliable master, but he didn't expect the so-called Levi's dead fish eyes to be such a crazy thing. Wheat without the Levi's dead fish eyes was a cute little cutie. Wheat with the Levi's dead fish eyes was like a dead otaku who had taken off his beautiful pupils. He was full of mournful and fierce temperament. When Wheat regained his sight and looked at himself with the Levi's dead fish eyes, even Meluhime, who stood at the top of the food chain, couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. He couldn't help but raise his hand to touch the back of his neck. He didn't know why he did that. Chimera Ant was different from human beings. It didn't matter if they looked good or not. Chapter 300. Tokyo University. The season of falling cherry blossoms, the longing and ignorance of the new students, the hurry and complaints of the old students. The tide of people intertwined and passed by, petals fell on their shoulders. There were seniors and juniors reuniting here, and a few years later, they would go their separate ways and say goodbye here. The young professor from the medical department pushed up his gold-rimmed glasses and came elegantly and calmly with a folder in his hand. The wind slightly rolled up the corner of the white coat, her lips curved into a gentle arc entering the classroom. It was still full of people. Many girls were sitting in the front row with red faces, half excited and half shy, taking advantage of the convenience of recording the class video, secretly taking pictures of him. He had a head of clean and neat short silver hair. A pair of clear and beautiful purple eyes, the bridge of her nose was high, and her lips were pale. Coupled with a tall head and an indifferent expression, there was a hint of abstinence in his tone. The young professor was called Conical Zero. He was a vampire stamped on the official information. He was a professor specially hired by the medical department of Eastern University, and he was also the king who held the supreme position of the vampire race. At the same time, he was also the strongest vampire hunter. Countless labels on him were contradictory and shining, but he himself was extremely indifferent to fame and fortune. The run-in period for vampires to integrate into human society had passed, excluding the two sides' different diets, unequal lifespans, and not on the same level of strength, there was not much difference. It had to be said that humans were a kind of creature with strong adaptability and extreme curiosity. After confirming that vampires were also a species that needed to eat, suck blood, sleep, and fall in love, their hearts gradually grew bigger. After the run-in period, it was the vigorous honeymoon period. Humans increasingly discovered that having a vampire as a friend was a very honorable thing. The appearance was off the charts, the dual IQ was extremely high, the demeanor of a noble, and the strength was high. Make friends with vampires and contribute 200 cc of blood, and they would remember your kindness of a meal. Maybe one day you would fall off a building or crash from a high altitude, and you would be able to pull them back and save your life. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Humans became more and more accepting of the blood clan, and it slowly evolved into what it was today. Members of the blood clan stepped into human society, doing jobs they had never done before, and developing hobbies they had never come into contact with before. For example, in order to overcome the temptation of blood, Conical Zero applied to the medical faculty and completed his studies in the shortest time possible. He studied abroad and even worked as a doctor without borders for 2 years. After that, he returned with honor and stayed in the hospital. From time to time, he would give lectures at Eastern University. His days were peaceful. He knew that his appearance was deceiving, and he also knew that many students were looking at his face. However, he didn't care, or it could be said that he was already used to other people's passionate or indifferent gazes. As long as they did not disturb his teaching, lectures, or the completion of his teaching tasks, he chose to turn a blind eye to the students' private little tricks. He opened the document, and his clear voice flowed from his lips and teeth like the most genial wind, making one's heart feel warm. Although Conical Zero was a genuine vampire, with the precipitation of time and the increase of experience, the irritation and impulsiveness of the beast had dissipated, leaving only the gentleness and restraint of human nature. Patients with severe depression are a group of people who can't feel happy emotions. Things that are inconspicuous in the eyes of many may become a sharp sword to stimulate the other party. Many people will have the question, why does a person always want to die? But the suicidal thoughts of patients with depression are not pretentious, but their actual thoughts and actions. In his eyes, every object is a murder weapon. The cause of severe depression is the lack of dopamine secretion in the patient's brain. Conical Zero spoke with fervor and assurance, timely switching between pictures and cases, and pointed out the difficult points one by one. Dopamine is a kind of brain secretion that can affect a person's emotions. It is the transmitter of information in the brain. It is a chemical that helps cells transmit impulses, leading to human desires, feelings, happiness, excitement, addiction. As for love, it is also the result of the human brain producing a large amount of dopamine, which can last for about 2 to 3 years. The girl sitting in the front row suddenly raised her hand. Conical Zero paused and said, "Do you have any questions?" The girl stood up rather excitedly. "Mr. Conical Growth, although it's very presumptuous, I think everyone has this question. Mr. Conical Growth, have you ever had a period of dopamine secretion?" After all, experienced college students were different from immature high school students. They were particularly sensitive to the topic of love. Moreover, Conical Zero was a fighter among male idols. Taking the opportunity to ask him about his preferences in women was a common theme that all the girls who admired him looked forward to. Conical Zero pushed up his glasses and said indifferently, "Yes." Hey dash, the boys and girls in the audience were excited. They never thought that their teacher would admit it so quickly and without a hint of guilt. Does Mr. Conical Growth have a girlfriend? Mr. Conical Growth also has someone he likes. I'm so shocked, I thought the teacher only liked textbooks. Mr. Conical Growth, do you mind telling me the type of girl you like? Mr. Conical Growth, do you like human girls or vampire girls? The serious atmosphere in the medical department's classroom was completely gone. Conical Zero sighed and gently knocked on the table with his knuckles. Knock, knock, knock. After 3 knocks, the excited boys and girls reluctantly quieted down. Sure enough, no matter what school he taught, no matter which year he taught, as long as dopamine was mentioned, it would more or less revolve around this topic. Conical Zero curled his lips and smiled faintly. I like humans more. The girls' eyes lit up and they stretched their necks. They were just short of saying, "Teacher, please enjoy me quickly." Conical Zero turned a blind eye to this and continued, "What type do I like? This is a little difficult. First of all, you have to be more beautiful than the Yamato nation's goddess of the year. The girls. Secondly, your body has to be more explosive than the Star of Asia." Conical Zero coldly and mercilessly listed out the criteria for choosing a mate. You can throw me to the ground, you can press a pure blood against the wall. Most importantly, I don't like dogs, and I won't allow you to keep them. Not even cats. The girls instantly became furious. This is too much, Conical Growth Sensei. Whether it's in the vampire race or the human dating market, your remarks will not end well. Therefore, after the end of today's class, Tokyo University's forum once again had a post criticizing Conical Zero's view on choosing a mate. However, many older students yawned, knowing that Sensei Conical Growth was talking nonsense again. Sensei Conical Growth was actually a bachelor. The reason why he kept saying the same thing every year was because he didn't want to cause trouble. But who knew what the truth was? In Conical Zero's independent office, the blood-stained coffee was steaming. He raised his cup and took a sip. Through the glass window, he looked down at the city that never sleeps in Tokyo, his mood indifferent. On the table behind him, an old thermos was placed next to his notebook. The scent of blood still lingered in the air. A year ago, he met 9 Orchid Flower. The two of them reminisced, but 9 Orchid Flower had no intention of returning. Half a year later, he sent Yoheim to Europe to take over the vampire race's base camp, and he lived a relatively stable life. The development of this world today was beyond everyone's expectations. But it was also reasonable. After all, that person had once disrupted the fate of this world. It was said that she was doing well, that she married a monster, that she gave birth to a pair of twins, that her son was difficult to manage, and that he would tear the roof tiles if he was not beaten for 3 days, just like when she was a child. It seemed that the moment when the curtain of the night fell was always suitable for reminiscing. Conical Zero picked up the suit on the leather chair and hung it on his shoulder. He closed the office door and walked in the dark corridor. He had let go of a lot of things, but what he could not let go was always the warmth that was once close at hand. Everything in the world lacked a little bit of fate, and it would really be a pity for a lifetime. The desire of the human heart was always greed. But he was not a person who indulged in his memories and felt sorry for himself. There would always be a goddess in every man's heart. Even though Yi Jiosa was not a good goddess, she still appeared in his past life. His footsteps could only be heard in the empty corridor. A moment later, his phone suddenly rang. Conical Zero flipped open the phone. Moshi. Hello, is this Mr. Conical Growth? A female voice came from the other end of the phone. She was reserved and cautious. Her Japanese pronunciation was not perfect, and occasionally, the order of her words was a little messy. I'm your Huaxia's purchasing agent. The purchasing agent girl dragged a huge suitcase and looked confused at the airport. I'm here in Japan to buy cosmetics. The hot pot that you ordered is here. Oh, hot pot base. Conical Zero vaguely remembered that it was not long before the blood-breed young pioneers returned from Huaxia's Shanghai tour. The group of level BS told him that Huaxia's hot pot was so delicious that it was a treasure of the world. Especially when human blood was rolled in the soup, it tasted sweet and fragrant. The moment he ate it, even his joints that were cold and wet all year round became warm. Because the level B's advertising was really good, Shui Xingling entrusted someone to find a Chinese purchasing agent to help him purchase the most authentic base material in the Sichuan and Shu area. Unexpectedly, the purchasing agent was also responsible for delivery. And all the way to Tokyo. Well, you can send it to Tokyo University. I am sorry. The purchasing agent girl whispered, I'm lost, I don't know, Sister Chin. As she spoke, she broke into Chinese. But how could she use Japanese to pronounce the word Sister Chin? Sister Chin, who brought this group of newbies to Japan to buy, was nowhere to be found. At the same time, several of her friends also disappeared. Maybe, probably, maybe. They left her at the airport. Conical Zero said helplessly, okay, the airport, right? Okay, please stay where you are and don't move. Yes, yes, yes. Conical Zero turned off his phone and sighed inwardly, how troublesome. The purchasing agent's goods could also be sent by air. He wasn't a vampire who couldn't afford the postage. He had specially sent the goods from Huaxia's Sichuan area to Tokyo Airport. He didn't know whether to praise the excellent service or to say, "Are you stupid?" Conical Zero went to the garage and looked at his luxurious supercar. After a moment of silence, he chose a bicycle. He drove a sports car at night, either to go on a date or to race. He wasn't that high profile, and he didn't want to be entangled by one or a few women just because a car was expensive. Tokyo's extravagance would always make people lose themselves. What's more, with a vampire's speed, a bicycle could also reach the speed of a supercar. So he rode his bicycle to the airport. Not long after, he saw a very cute girl fiercely throw a pervert over her shoulder and step on his face. Crush, crush. Her childish voice was super fierce. Pervert dash, this Japanese pronunciation was very accurate. It was completely the tone of a loli's rage, but it didn't have much deterrence. The pervert's nose was bleeding, and his face was full of happiness from being stepped on. Great. Great. Conical Zero. Although he also admitted that the girl looked soft and cute and easy to bully, the pervert was a kind of pollution. It would destroy the foreign guest's impression of Japan. Conical Zero walked over, picked up the pervert, and casually threw him to the side. With a bang, the pervert fainted. May I ask who you are? Conical Zero. Conical Zero lowered his head and looked at the huge suitcase and the small figure of about 1.6 meters. He sighed and said, "Let's find a place first." The girl looked a little uneasy, and her eyes were full of vigilance. Not only did she not trust his identity, but she also seemed to not trust his words. "I'm sorry, how can you prove that you are Mr. Conical Growth?" Conical Zero, who had always relied on his handsome face to succeed, was speechless. He reached into his pocket. There was no proof. Helpless, he could only call the other party's cell phone. It took a lot of effort to persuade the little girl not to wait at the airport. If she wanted to find a companion, she had to go to the police station. Then, he received a basket of Chinese words from the little girl, several packets of Sichuan and Chongqing hot pot base, and half a bag of dried sweet potatoes from the northeast. Conical Zero. With his conscience, Conical Zero still reminded her, if it's late at night, don't run out. There will be vampires. Most of the vampires had been restrained, but there were still a small number of level E who couldn't control their appetites. For the sake of the base and sweet potatoes, it was not a big deal to give them a word or two. Vampires. The girl rolled her eyes. It's all a lie. Do you believe it? The Japanese's brain circuit is really amazing. She muttered in Chinese, which was difficult to understand. Conical growth vampire 0. After sending the girl to the police station, Conical 0 did not linger and left. However, fate was a magical thing. It would always rush to the unknown in a certain encounter. A few days later, at the airport, Conical 0 had just climbed off the bike when he heard a heavy thud and a super fierce childish voice, "Pervert." Conical 0. The familiar recipe and the familiar taste reminded him of the hot pot base and dried sweet potatoes. Then the question was, were there so many perverts at the airport? Chapter 301. Kaneki Ken, 19 years old, male, an ordinary student of Shangjin University. He had ordinary black hair, ordinary black eyes, and the average height of an ordinary Japanese male. Even his interest in reading was quite ordinary. In other words, Kaneki Ken was an ordinary person who would be instantly drowned if thrown into a crowd. He was shy and introverted, like a little white rabbit who was ignorant of the world. When he was a child, he experienced the sadness of the death of his father and mother. He grew up alone, and his only luck was to have an optimistic and cheerful friend, Yujin Hideyoshi. According to the general routine, such an ordinary Kaneki Ken would either hold the male protagonist's level-up script, or walk on the male protagonist's harem. But unfortunately, Kaneki Ken's road to level up was full of life and death. The first girl that Kaneki Ken fell in love with treated him as food. It was the template of a miserable life. When the world tore apart the peaceful camouflage to Kaneki Ken, it revealed its most ferocious true face. This ordinary person finally understood that all his previous cognition was far away from him. Human beings were never the masters of the earth. There was a kind of creature that fed on human beings. They had the same appearance as human beings. They had the same red blood, and even different personalities and careers. They integrated into human beings, disguised as human beings, and lived in a world full of humans, like hunters sitting surrounded by livestock. They were fearless. They were called brother. Like to eat people through sufficient flesh and blood, highly concentrated RC cells, and similar Kakuho evolution, step by step, they would eventually reach an unpredictable height and become a real high-latitude life. But Brother Orange forgive. Steal. Aborigines. Death Saimu Wu sniping chi. Wild hibiscus post neon fernies, he was once a human being. What a ridiculous sorrow it was. For the first time, he fell in love with a girl. For the first time, he had the courage to approach her. For the first time, he felt that he embraced warmth, only to find that everything was a fraud. She was Brother Zheng. Pretending to be castrated? Sidan EU. Lai Yao Yao Xian Xian Huan Zhang Zhang Shu. And the doctor who found her and him exchanged and fused the organs of both sides for some reason. For some unknown reason, the doctor who discovered her and him actually swapped and fused their organs. Therefore, he became Brother Orange Protect. Kofmu Grandma. Orange Say Tomb 3. Mourning over death. Ha. Soul. Plotting evil deeds. Air. Challenge the fan. What future, what system, what dog, what mission? Kaneki Ken doesn't care about it anymore. After fusing with Kamishiro Rise's flesh and blood, her ferocious appearance always appeared in his mind from time to time. Why? Why did they want to coexist with Kamishiro? What was the point of such a life? Might as well die. Unfortunately, brother is in trouble. Zeo, Pol. Duja. Jingtan Yellow Beer. Kaneki Ken tried many times and was completely in despair. He cried bitterly and admitted how difficult it was to become a monster. After struggling for a few days, Kaneki Ken was so hungry that he was weak, but his mind was still clear. He restrained his appetite and suddenly remembered some details that he had neglected for a long time. Whenever his willpower was weak, Kamishiro Rise would take advantage of it and affect his spiritual world, tempting him to eat, kill, and indulge in lust. At the same time, the unknown system would always jump out and use a series of electronic sounds to disrupt Kamishiro Rise's rhythm and call back his reason. The system is trustworthy, right? After being deceived once, his vigilance was raised to an unprecedented level. Even if the system behaved innocently, he didn't immediately meet the requirements of the system to do the task assigned by it. Kaneki Ken was so hungry that he couldn't help but bite himself a few times to relieve the emptiness in his stomach. When the sweet blood flowed into his body, he cried silently and choked with sobs. What else could he do? Did he have a way out? Did he have a choice? He even lost the qualification to be a human. What else could he do except to keep his human nature? Now was the worst situation, wasn't it? What else could the system want from him? If it could kill him, that would be the best. With the mentality of a broken pot, Kaneki Ken bit his hand until it was bloody. After making sure that he was half full and that he wouldn't lose control and attack humans, he roughly bandaged his hand, took his wallet, and went out. He vaguely remembered that the first task was to raise a dog. Raise what? Well, it seemed to be called Husky. Oh, yes, raise a husky. But why raise a husky? What's so special about this dog? Kaneki Ken had never raised a kitten or a puppy. When he was a child, he was poor and loved books. It was difficult for him to support himself, let alone develop hobbies and interests outside of survival. Growing up to this day, until he could work to earn money, he was a little better off, but he still lived a hard life. He couldn't help but think about how much it cost to raise a dog. Unknowingly, Kaneki Ken stood at the door of the pet shelter, submitted his name and ID, and said that he wanted to adopt a husky. Until standing in this place, Kaneki Ken realized why the system wanted him to raise a dog. The smell of cats and dogs mixed together easily overwhelmed the smell of human meat, which was a good way to control his appetite. System. No, you overestimated the IQ of the Lord God, Kaneki-kun. A sweet-looking girl held a cage and put it in front of Kaneki Ken. You are so lucky. This husky cub is very cute. Really, his owner is so cruel, abandoning him at the door of the shelter. The husky cub's blue eyes focused on Kaneki Ken, soft and cute. Woof dash, Kaneki Ken was in a good mood. Thank you, he is very cute. Yes, yes. The girl's smile became more sincere. So please treat him well. His owner left a note before abandoning him, it seems to be called Sesame Ball. Sesame Ball's little tail wagged, woof woof woof. Yes, yes. My mother asked me to come here to cheat food and drink. Kaneki Ken smiled. I will. At first glance, his facial features looked ordinary, but the moment he smiled, it bloomed a different kind of brilliance. This was a kind of gratitude and gentleness from the heart, like soft sunshine, can illuminate the heart in an instant. Sesame Ball paused, wagging his tail even more cheerfully. This person not only smells good, but also looks very good. It's decided, this is my little brother under Sesame Ball's protection. Kaneki Ken left with Sesame Ball in his arms. He was really a gentle person. Since he decided to raise a dog, he would naturally treat it as a family member.